Maybe. Are we live? I think. Oh, there we go. All right. What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here. Welcome to this unexpected live stream. They are really churning out these UAs quickly. I haven't even gotten a chance to finish covering the last one and making the TLDR versions of all of those before Unearthed Arcana 8 dropped, and here we are. This was not a planned stream. Did not realize they were going to basically drop it immediately after. I have so many other videos that I'm supposed to be making that I want to be making, yet here we are. So let me just change over because I've been on live chat. There we go. So yeah, it doesn't look like we're getting monks in this. This is something we'd heard about. It's called Bastions, which is their version of player housing. If you go back to my video from Gen Con, where I attended their 2024 rules update stream, I sat in on that panel and then basically live tweeted the entire panel and then made a video about what was said in that. Also, by the way, Planescape is out. I have it on D&D Beyond. I was going to make videos on that too. I still have to finish up Phandelver and Big B's and run all the giveaways that I'm planning on running. I have some Kickstarter-related stuff to talk about. I just have so much going on right now. But anyway, what you guys are here for is Unearthed Arcana 8, Bastions and Cantrips, it's called. So I imagine we're not going to get the monk at all, which brings up a potential larger issue, which we'll get to in just a second. So, all right. Let's go ahead and dive in. Here we are on D&D Beyond. We went to Sources, Unearthed Arcana, and then we went to this. I'll show you again. Here we go. Sources, Unearthed Arcana, Bastions and Cantrips, which is technically 8. They decided to change the name. It's still Playtest 8, but it's called Bastions, Cantrips, and then Survey Results. There is a video. We will watch that as part of this. I get the feeling this isn't a very long Unearthed Arcana, but I have not looked at it at all, so you guys are going to get the first impressions from me as we do this. So we're going to go ahead and click download PDF, and we will see. It is 23 pages, so not that long. So let me just address sort of a larger issue, I think, real quick. We are in a situation where the books are supposed to come out next year at some point. I'm assuming we're looking at Q3, Q4 for those releases, right? So sometime in the latter half of the year. They've also come out and stated that we're going to get these books in a staggered release. So we're not going to get them all as one box. We're going to get them 1, 2, 3 over a period of time. My assumption would be they'll release them in 1, 2, 3, and then a holiday themed, like a box set for the holiday season, so you can get like all 3 together in a sleeve case with a DM screen around the holidays. That's a good marketing move. I have no basis on that besides that. We know that they were having trouble getting printers earlier in the year, but I think from having talked to my friends who do publishing in a variety of different aspects, like 6 months on a really good time turnaround is about how long you're going to want to have from the time you decide to submit whatever you want to print to the printer to get it into physical, a physical copy of it, right? So if that's the case, and you were to say submit, you wrap this all up in January, then in theory, if everything is optimal and there's no delays, you might be able to see a first book launch sometime in June, July. Yes, Mark Garlasco, I will be at PAX Unplugged, which reminds me I also have to put out a thing. I have 5 tickets, 3-day tickets to give away. So I will be doing that in the near future. So keep an eye on my social media for that. Anyway, that being said, they had said in that panel, I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm not messing this up, that they were looking to do 10 total Unearthed Arcanas for the player's handbook, right? So this is number 8. We're seeing this here in a relatively short turn. Remember, we were doing every other month. I'm going to guess we're probably going to see Unearthed Arcana 9 in November, and Unearthed Arcana 10, which would be the final one, in December. And then they're going to move away from Unearthed Arcana for the player's handbook and move into something like the Monster Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide, because they did say they wanted to attempt to playtest aspects of that. Yes, I'm also surprised at the turnaround, because they did say they were going to give us more time in between them to really get playtest in. It seems like that's not going to be the case right now, because obviously they want to get stuff out. Anyway, so we got this Bastions thing here, which also makes me worry that how much time is the monk going to get, because we've seen every other class and subclass that have multiple iterations of adjustments, and the monk has seen one appearance entirely. Which means, I guess, if Unearthed Arcana 9 has a re-up to the monk, then we could see something there. But you're starting to get into the cynical territory where, are you actually reviewing this stuff? Or is this just what you're telling us you're going to do, and then you're not actually doing it? Obviously, we know we had a lot of funky stuff going on with the OGL earlier in the year about whether they review stuff, whether they don't. They've told us that they do. I don't know how you could actually prove that you're doing that. But, yeah, it's starting to get to the point where, like, are you just doing this to make it look like you're listening? Because you're not going to have that much time to really make marketed adjustments to your subclasses and classes and then get them into the printer to be able to print them for release in 2024. So I guess you're saying this one is a DM's Guide UA. All right. So, oh, okay. Well, I haven't actually read it. So well, you know, let's go ahead and dive in and we'll see. All right. How about that? Here we are. Unearthed Arcana, Bastions, and Cantrips. This playtest document presents material designed for the 2024 version of the core rulebooks. The material here uses the rules in the 2014 core rulebooks, except where noted. While the public playtest for the player's handbook continues, we wanted to give you this early taste of material slated for the revised DMG. Okay, so this may be a way that they get around what we were talking about. We've moved from we did a player's handbook. Now we're doing a DMG, which means they can kind of do these back and forth, which means that Unearthed Arcana 9 can be about the player, or be about the player's handbook stuff, but like in the off month when they're not doing player's handbook, they can do Dungeon Master's Guide. So that kind of works to give you a little more frequent Unearthed Arcanas, as it were. However, I still do wonder, are you going to be able to iterate enough? When the monk was often deemed, in a lot of senses, pretty weak in the 2014 Player's Handbook, it didn't really hit well, in my opinion, in the Unearthed Arcana Playtest. What was it, 6? Didn't hit well. I'll think that's a general consensus, so it needed a major revamp, but you're going to do that, but how much time are you going to have to get the feedback on the next version of the monk to then allow it? I'd like to see 3 iterations of every class so that we can really dive into this. I still feel like the Ranger isn't hitting perfectly, in my opinion. I know people may disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But let's dive into this, okay? It says, learn more on YouTube. To learn more about the design, we have a video. We are going to watch that video after we're done with this. Yes, thank you, Garrett. Yeah, please feel free to like this video. It drives it up in the algorithm. If you haven't subscribed, Monk pun didn't hit well. Yeah, you're right. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It drives up the number behind me here. It does help out. They're not bringing the Artificer to the Player's Handbook for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why that is. But it seems to, like, it's going to be revamped to fit into, like, the new concepts of these new updated classes at some point, which I'm guessing that's going to be like the next Xanathars, as it were. That's what I think is going to happen. Purely speculation is that we'll get the 2024 core rulebooks 1, 2, 3, right? And then at some point, I'm hoping the next book will be like the next player option book. It will include the updated version of the Artificer in that book, and it'll aggregate all of, like, a bunch of the a bunch of the subclasses that didn't make it into the 2024 book will get kind of aggregated into that as like a 2024 player option 2.0 book, right? So we know there's several subclasses that will be left behind from the 2014 Player's Handbook, as well as some subclasses from both Xanathar's Guide and Tasha's Cauldron that weren't updated to be part of the 2024 new Player's Handbook. My hope is that the next book will take, the Artificer and then grab those subclasses and kind of remeld them to fit into the new versions of the 2024 stuff. And that'll be like the next. You could just call it Player's Handbook too, but they won't. But either way. Okay, going on. Here we go. How to play test this. We invite you to try out this material. When you do so, you can use characters created using the 2014 Player's Handbook or the test ones started with character origins. Okay. For testing the cantrips, you may create an adventure of your own or use a short adventure from a source like Keys from the Golden Vault. So they're pointing us towards anthology adventures because they're shorter. Okay. Bastions. A bastion is a location that belongs to a player character, a home, a stronghold, a power that the character nurtures and develops over the course of the campaign. A bastion offers a temporary refuge from the dangerous worlds, blah, blah, blah. It's up to the DM to decide whether bastions are available in the campaign. So it's optional right out the gate. Bastions are suited to campaigns that allow characters to return to their bastions during intervals when they're not actively adventuring. There's no need to choose between going on adventures and commanding a bastion. A character can do both at once. A bastion has special facilities that generate in-game benefits, and these facilities can also undertake projects while the character is otherwise preoccupied. Bastions are intended to be havens for characters who own them, although random events might test a bastion from time to time. See Bastion Events. The bastion can be destroyed in only one of two ways. See the Fall of Bastion section. Most importantly, a bastion is a creative playground for a player and a shared storytelling space in the campaign. DM should be as permissive as possible with the story players tell in their bastions, but players should also know their control goes only so far. With the DM strives to make fun for everyone. So this all tracks with what I heard back at Gen Con during that panel. Basically, it's a way to kind of allow, in some instances, we'll see, but downtime activities without actually having to be in between adventures, right? If you have people or workers at your bastion doing things, then that can happen concurrently while you're adventuring. Like, so if you have like a magic item salesman guy, person, they can be selling the magic items while you are off adventuring as opposed to having to be in a downtime state to then do things. All right. Design notes, defenders and hirelings. To ease the burden on players, we don't present or require statistics for bastion, hirelings, and defenders. All a player needs to track is the number each in their bastion. Players can assign names and personalities as they see fit. Okay, so giving you the freedom to name these people, or they can just kind of be nameless, faceless figures. GP expenditure. Bastions give characters a new way to spend their gold, but we want the gold they spend to make them happy as opposed to feeling like mortgage payments. This is a big thing. We've talked about this. Many of us have for years, that gold is kind of a nothing resource depending on the game you play. I have played in games where we've played with mostly martial characters, and we just have a smash sum of gold. I'm looking at you, Horde of the Dragon Queen / Rise of Tiamat, where you are constantly defeating dragons and getting dragon hordes worth of gold, and have nothing to do with that gold, right? Now, obviously, the concept of downtime and buying magic items, but you also find so many in those particular games, it's almost not necessary. Whereas in, say, my Great Modron March campaign, 2 of the characters in that party are wizards. We spend gold all the time because we're always copying spells into our spell book or buying scrolls and that kind of stuff. So wizards are basically one of the few things that have a means of expending gold consistently in 5e, whereas eventually, I even see that in Baldur's Gate 3, right? If I start amassing a mass amount of gold, if I give it to the wizard to add spells to their spell book, that's like a big way to add, to spend your gold. Otherwise, you can just have mass amounts that you never use. So this is good in that aspect, right? Giving you an expenditure means for gold here. Gaining a bastion. If you allow bastions in your campaign, characters acquire their bastions when they reach level 5. You just get it. You and the players can decide together how these bastions come into being. A character might inherit or receive a parcel of land on which to build their bastion, or they might make take a pre-existing structure and refurbish it. Okay. It's fair to assume that work has been going on behind the scenes for the campaign during a character's early adventuring career, so the bastion is ready for you. Okay. So they're saying you get it when you hit level 5, but like as the DM, maybe lay some groundwork that this is a thing that's happening. And honestly, in a lot of the campaigns that I've ran, the potential for these kind of strongholds or places for people to own have been set up, and they often do have like a home base. To shape style and function for a character's bastion, the shape, style, and function rather are up to the player to determine. For example, a wizard might build a tower, a cleric might establish a shrine, a fighter might build a keep, etc. Characters of other classes might choose one of these forms or combining them. A paladin's bastion might be similar to a cleric's shrine and fortify like a fighter stronghold, and so on. Not every character needs to have a bastion. It's fine for some players in your campaign to opt into a bastion ownership and others to opt out. Characters without bastions of their own can still gain some benefits from their friends' bastions. So they're not forcing you into it if you don't want to do this. So it's really up to you and your DM whether you want to do this or not. Every bastion contains basic and special facilities, which encompass everything from kitchens and bedrooms to fantastical menageries and magical laboratories. I'm excited to see that. Character can add basic facilities to their bastion at any time, spending money and time depending on the facility. Each bastion begins with 2 special facilities. A character adds additional special facilities at 9, 13, and 17. Okay, so there is some actual mechanics here, which is interesting. As time passes in the campaign, characters take bastion turns to reflect the activity during their bastions. Okay, so it's like an actual mechanic of turns. A bastion turn occurs every 7 days of in-game time, though the DM can alter this, okay? On a bastion turn, a character can issue orders to the special facilities in their bastion or issue the maintain order to the entire bastion. Okay. How bastion turns work. By default, bastion turns occur every 7 days, giving characters regular opportunities to issue orders to their bastions and reap the benefit of doing so. Here are some typical situations. The characters are on a long journey away from their bastions. After the character have been away for 7 days, you might say, time for a bastion turn. Since you're not there, resolve the maintain order for your bastions, then roll for bastion events. Okay. I gotta tell you, I'm actually really kind of enjoying what I'm hearing so far. So far, this is a thumbs up for me, but let's keep going. The characters spend 7 days or more in their bastions between adventures. You might say you have 6 weeks to spend in your bastions. Go ahead and resolve 6 bastion turns. The characters return to their bastions in the midst of an adventure. You might say you have just enough time to issue a new order. If you like, take a bastion turn before you leave again in the morning. Okay? The characters are adventuring near their bastions and are spending every night in their bastions. You might say it's been a week since your last bastion turn, so you can take a new one now. I really like these examples. They're pretty nice. I'm digging this. Yes, this is player housing. Yeah. Sometimes you might want to slow the pace of bastion turns. If the characters have a long period of downtime between adventures, say 6 months or more, you might call for a bastion turn every month instead of every 7 days. Aim for about 6 to 8 bastion turns per level. Okay, so consider that level as kind of what they're giving you here. No, I'm going to start where I want to start. So, if the characters are adventuring at a breakneck pace and gaining a new level every week, they'll have no time to enjoy the benefits of their bastions. On the other hand, if they're spending extended time between adventures and levels gained, spacing out bastion turns ensures that they won't amass more bastion points than they can use. Okay. Each special facility in a bastion generates bastion points during a bastion turn, depending on the facility and the bastion order issued to the facility, okay? Players are responsible for tracking how bastion points, how many their characters have, and they can't be transferred between characters. Okay. Character can spend them to acquire magic items for their or from their bastion to receive other special rewards, okay? They're an abstraction reflecting the characters accumulate when their bastions, blah, blah, blah. Perhaps the bastion higher, okay, that's not important. Accumulating bastion points. When characters issue orders to special facilities in their bastion, those facilities generate bastion points. Each special facility description indicates the number of bastion points the facility generates. Okay, if a character issues the maintain order to the bastion, each special facility instead generates a D4 points. Special facilities that have been shut down or lost their hireling because of an event don't generate points. Makes sense? Bastion's starting to not sound like a word now. Yeah, I agree. Characters can use money to influence the rate at which facilities generate. BP, we'll call it. We could probably figure that out. Let's see. Characters can use money to influence the rate at which facilities earn Bastion points. Spending 25 gold when issuing an order to a facility allows the player to roll the die for that facility's Bastion point generation twice and use the high results, so sort of like an advantage. All right. Acquiring magic items. Each time a character gains a level, they can spend their Bastion points to acquire a single magic item. Any magic item acquired in the fashion must be approved by the DM. They're allowing the DM to have that kind of control, which is good. The point cost of each magic item is based on the item's rarity, as shown in the spending points table below. If a rarity has a level prerequisite, the character must be at that level or higher to get it. That makes sense. They must be in their Bastion to claim the item acquired with the points. If the character is away, the magic item remains secure for them. Okay, so here we go. There's no level prerequisite for common or uncommon. It is 20 BP for a common item, 70 for an uncommon. Level 9 is required for rare and 250 points. Very rare is 13th level with 350, and then legendary 17 with 700. So I guess this is sort of WotC's way of saying when they think you should be possibly acquiring these kinds of items, meaning rare items around level 9-ish or so. I don't think this tracks with what I've seen in the pre-written campaigns, but either way. Characters who have reached level 20 can use Bastion points to acquire a magic item each time they earn a bonus feat. Okay. Okay. The word redundancy in this is pretty bad. Not every. Yeah, I know. It is very redundant. Lots of usage of the same word. But BP is Bastion points, because we want to keep saying Bastion a lot. Okay. Other uses for BP. On gaining a level, a character can spend 10 BP to ensure that word of their heroic deeds spreads throughout the region. For the next 7 days, the character has advantage on all charisma check. Oh, this is going to be tricky to track. For the next 7 days, the character has advantage on all charisma checks while within 50 miles of their Bastion. When a character dies, they can spend 100 BP to return to life in their Bastion at the next dawn. After spending BP in this way, a character can't do so again until gaining at least 1 level. Interesting. Very interesting. So obviously we have the purpose of spending the points. Seems like one of the main reasons you would do this is to get magic items, which seems to be Wizards of the Coast working around how, like, we're not going to give you flat out pricing for magic items, or maybe they will, but for right now, they're saying you can buy them with these mythical Bastion points that you gain. You also can spend 10 of them to get advantage on all charisma checks within 50 miles of this location, so make sure you're keeping track on the map of how far away you are from your Bastion. And if you have 100, you can just use it to resurrect yourself without any downside at all. 100, you'll be back at your Bastion the next day. That's a once per current level that you're at. You have to level up again before you can do it again. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it really does depend on how fast you earn the BP. A free resurrection at the cost of 2 uncommon magic items worth of BP. Yeah, pretty much, if you want to look at it that way, yeah. The resurrection mechanic is a little odd. I can imagine... There's reasons why I think it could exist, right? If you have, like, a cleric or something, like, that makes sense that you could bring your character back. Maybe there's a specific facility that require that, although it doesn't seem to be the case. It does feel video gamey without narrative explanation. I mean, that part of D&D has always felt like that, right? I mean, death isn't permanent in D&D unless you make rules to make it more permanent. Death is just a minor inconvenience in Dungeons and Dragons. You just resurrect somebody with a 3rd level spell or a 5th level spell. I mean, either way. As long as you got enough gold, it's not really an issue for you. Yeah, it depends, right? Didn't old school fighters used to get something? Yeah, so either way, let's keep going on. Bastion facilities. When a character gains one, it comes with 2 basic facilities and 2 special facilities. Okay, here we go. The amount of space in a facility determines its maximum area in 5-foot squares. This is very meticulous. As shown in the facility space table, players can configure the squares of a facility as they please on the map. The squares can be stacked that a facility's area is distributed over multiple levels or stories. Okay. Space, we have cramped is 4 squares, roomy is 16 squares, and vast is 36. Okay. Oh boy, we get into closets and all right, well, here we go. Buckle up, folks. Bastion map. A player is encouraged to create a floor plan for their character's bastion, configuring the basic and special facilities. So this I actually like. This might not be everybody's cup of tea, but the concept of building a map, like the floor plan, I like this, but I also enjoy this kind of stuff just in my regular life, designing things, whether it be furniture or house rooms and things like that in my house. I enjoy this. So this works for me. I've done this in the past with other campaigns and other RPGs where we would design the floor plan of the building that we lived in, and I enjoyed that. So this resonates with me, but this might just seem like pointless and meticulous to you. So in addition to those facilities, the bastion can have the following features. Closets. Basic or special facility can have one or more closet-sized enclosures. Okay. Doors and windows. Each facility comes with one or more doors and shuttered windows. See doors in Chapter 5 of the Dungeon Master's Guide for more info on the kinds of doors. These features are free. Corridors, ramps, and staircases. A facility can have one or more corridor, ramp, or staircases. These are also free. Defensive walls. A character can add defensive walls around their bastion. A defensive wall is 20 feet high and may include a walkway on top of it with means to access it, like a ladder or a lift. Each 5-foot square of defensive walk takes 10 days to build and 250 gold. If your bastion comes under attack, see bastion events, reduce by 2 the number of dice you roll to determine how many defenders are lost in the attack. Okay, so that's your defensive wall. Okay. Combining bastions. Okay, so this is where they said everybody can have their own, or some people can just choose to have one and then others not. So like if you don't like this concept, you don't have to use one. Also, your DM may just not allow it in the campaign you're playing in, so this might not really be an issue for you. Right? 2 or more players have the option of combining their characters' bastions into one single structure. Doing so doesn't change the number of special facilities each one can have, how those facilities work, or who gets to issue orders to each. Each bastion retains its own hirelings, which can't be sent or shared with the others. The defenders are handled differently. If some event deprives one character's bastion of defenders, another character can apply all or some of their losses to their bastion instead. Okay, so let's try to hypothetical this out. I'm a cleric. I have a shrine. That's my bastion. I built it, right? I have some facilities. I have hirelings, whatever. You're a fighter. You want a fortified keep. We decide we're going to combine. Now, within the confines of your fortified keep is also my shrine, right? Let's say something like that. So my shrine does its things. Your keep does its things. They're separate from one another. The only time they possibly cross over is if somebody is assaulting our entire overall structure. Then I can maybe supplement. If your wall defenders get killed, I can then supplement my defenders to fill that gap, I think is how I'm understanding this. And obviously, if everybody has their own, if it's a 4-person party, you could make one big mega structure. Yes, it is public. It's available on D&D Beyond. Basic facilities. They don't generate... Okay, so only the special facilities generate the points that you can use to do things. Basic facilities don't generate points, but they can inspire meaningful roleplay. A bastion with a kitchen is functionally the same as one without, but the former gives you and your players a fun setting to start sessions, have in-character discussions, or introduce new NPCs. A character's bastion starts with 2 free facilities, with the character player chooses from the basic facilities list below. One of the chosen facilities is cramped, meaning only 4 squares. And the other is roomy, meaning 16. A bastion can have more than one of each basic facility. Okay, so consider... This is kind of interesting, because you could have a bedroom in your bastion, or not. You can only have 2. So you could have a washroom and a bedroom, but you might not have a kitchen. But functionally, it doesn't matter, it's just roleplay stuff. And they did say it is 4 squares, 4 5-foot squares is the cramped one, right? And the roomy one is 16. Now, they did say you could make it like 16, 2 by 8, or you could do, stack things on top to have it be a multi-level situation. So, A basic facility comes with non-magical furnishings and decor appropriate for that facility. Basic facilities can be enlarged and new ones added by spending gold and in-game time, as discussed in the sections that follow. Any number of facilities can be built or enlarged at the same time. A character doesn't need to be in their bastion while new facilities are being added or enlarged. Okay. So, like they said, they're basically just locations for roleplay. So, if my shrine is, so we'll continue with the shrine and the fighter combo, right? So, for the shrine, maybe I have a bedroom, right? Because it's a shrine, and that's where I stay as a cleric, right? And then I maybe have a courtyard for outdoor prayer. I don't know, right? And your fighter, you've got a storage facility and a kitchen. So in theory, I would leave my shrine to come over to your keep to eat because you have the kitchen there, right? Now, obviously, with time and money, I could add a kitchen to the shrine if I wanted. But this does add, like, if everybody builds their own little complex, you have your little compound, then you have roleplay means to go from one to the other. Okay. Adding basic facilities. So here's how this works, right? You can add additional ones. To add an additional cramped space, which is the 4x4, it would be 500 gold pieces and 20 in-game days to do that. Reminder, this can happen while you're not there. If you're just out adventuring, you could come back and they're like, oh, hey, we added a washroom to the shrine, right? And then obviously room is 1,045 days, and vast, which was 36 squares. Yeah, 36 squares takes 125 days and 3,000 gold. So that's how that works. So that is the cost of adding an entirely new facility. Now, there is difference for expanding facilities. So to take your little 4-square thing and expand it to 16 squares, that's 500 gold pieces in 25 days. And then to go from the 16 squares to the 36 or 32 squares is 2,000 gold pieces in 80 days, which makes sense if you already have the space. Easier to expand it than it is to just make a whole new space. Okay, so that's fine. So that kind of is, again, a reminder that these are purely roleplay based. But if you have a party of 4 players and each person has their own little location, you can design it however you want, make it all one big compound, or put it in a town, right? My shrine might be in part of Phandalin and your keep might be on the other end. They might not be connected at all. You don't have to connect them. It just has the benefit of kind of build your own little space, foster your own little inside community, and then have the opportunity to share defenders and things if stuff comes to it. I think that makes the most sense, but either way. All right, then we get into the special facilities. These are the things you're actually going to want to talk about because these are the ones that can generate the bastion points for you, which you can use, as far as we know currently, to only buy magic items, give yourself advantage on charisma checks if you're close to it, and then possibly give yourself a free resurrection. Also, I got to say that this is probably the first one. This is also playtest. If this goes over poorly, they could just tank the system entirely or add and expand to it. Also, potential for future books to add and expand to this as well. All right. A character's bastion initially starts with 2 special facilities of the character's choice for which they qualify, so there's rules behind that. Unlike basic facilities, special facilities can't be bought. They just gain them with level advancement. So you get 2 at the start, 2 more at 9, 2 more at 9, 1 additional one at 13, and another additional one at 17. So the most you can ever have is 6. 2 from level 5 when you get it, 2 at 9, and then an additional 2 with 1 at 13 and 1 at 17. Yes, it is on D&D Beyond. The special facility acquisition table shows the total number of special facilities in a character's bastion. Assume the construction is ongoing in the time leading up to the character reaching the new level. Oh, so this is kind of happening in the background, so you plan out what you're going to be, and then all of a sudden it's constructed when you hit that level. Okay. Each time a character gains a level, that character can replace one of their bastion facilities with another. Any level, so it doesn't have to be one of these levels. So if you're at 5 and you chose 2 facilities and you didn't like it and you hit 6, you can swap one in and out. That's kind of a little hand-wavy mechanically, but either way. Assume the construction's been ongoing prior. Okay, requirements. Each special facility has a level, so some of these are level locked. A character must be of that level to do so. For example, only a character who can use an arcane focus as a spellcasting focus can have an arcane study. Oh, okay, so there are other requirements other than just level. Okay, space. A special facility occupies a certain amount of space. Just as with a basic facility, a player can configure the squares however they like. Okay. Hirelings. A special facility comes with one or more hirelings who work in and maintain that facility. So it doesn't sound like necessarily there are hirelings at the basics, but there are definitely hirelings with the special ones. Hirelings also execute Bastion orders, as described in the following section. A player can assign names and personalities as they see fit. Each special facility in a Bastion is assumed to generate enough income to pay the salary of the hirelings, so you don't have to manage salaries, which is nice. Hirelings follow the orders they're given and are assumed to be loyal to the owner. Okay, orders. On a Bastion turn, which remember we've established is every 7 days of in-game time, a character in their Bastion can issue special orders called Bastion orders to one or more of their Bastion special facilities. A character needn't issue the orders to all the facilities in their Bastion on a given turn, so you don't have to, but you can. The maintain order is unusual. Okay, it is issued to the entirety of the Bastion rather than a specific. Okay, so you can order a specific facility to do something, or you can just say, I want to maintain, which is keep everything status quo, and that applies to all of your special facilities, right? If the character isn't in their Bastion on a given turn, the Bastion acts as though it was issued the maintain order. So you have to be physically in the Bastion to issue the orders. If not, you'll just maintain. Each time a character issues an order, the character gains a number of Bastion points determined by a die roll, as noted in the order line of the facility's description. Okay, so each facility will have it. We know it's a D4 basic for the maintain. Okay, craft. The orders are as follows. Craft. Hirelings in the special facility begin crafting an item that can be made in that facility. You can also do the work yourself, but if you do so, the work is suspended when you leave the Bastion until you return. Okay, so it is giving you options for crafting, which is nice because we don't have good crafting options in 5e. During the time required to craft an item, the facility can't be used to craft anything else, even if the special ability allows the facility to carry out 2 orders at once. Empower. The facility confers a temporary empowerment to the player character or someone else. Harvest. A resource is produced in the special facility, and the hirelings gather it. You can also do the gathering yourself, but if you do so, it's suspended if you leave. That makes sense. Maintain. All of the Bastion's hirelings focus on maintaining the Bastion rather than executing orders, special orders in the facility. Issuing this order prohibits other orders from being issued. Each time the maintain order is issued, the character who issues the order gains a D4 Bastion points for each special facility in their Bastion. Okay, so if you're level 5 and you have 2 special facilities and you issue the maintain order, you get a D4 Bastion points for each facility each time you do it, which would be every 7 days. Okay. All right. And the DM rolls on the Bastion events table. Okay. So in lieu of Bastion points, they would normally earn. Okay, yeah. So then the DM rolls on the Bastion events table. Bastion events are resolved during the next Bastion turn. We'll get to the events soon. Hirelings, or recruit rather, hirelings recruit creatures to your Bastion. That's an option. Research, hirelings in the special facility gather information. You can also do the research yourself, but again, if you leave, it ends when you leave. And then trade, hirelings buy and sell goods or services stored or produced in the facility. Here's the list, right? So level 5 at the start, we have the following options. Arcane Study, Armory, Barracks, Garden, Library, Sanctuary, Smithy, Storehouse, and Workshop. Reminder, at level 5, you get to pick 2 of these to add to your Bastion. And then here on the middle side's the prerequisite, right? So to get an Arcane Study, you need to use an Arcane Focus or a Spellcasting Focus. For a Sanctuary, you have to use a Holy Symbol or a Druidic Focus. And for the Smithy, the Smithy needs Fighting Style or Unarmored Defense, and the Workshop requires expertise in a skill. So you can see they're kind of tied towards specific classes. And then it shows you the order that you can submit. So Arcane Study can craft, Armory can trade, Barracks can recruit, Garden can harvest, Library can research, Sanctuary and Smithy can craft, Storehouse can trade, and Workshop can trade. And then you can see they go up to level 9. We have a Gaming Hall, Greenhouse, Laboratory, Sacristy, I don't even know what that is, Scriptorium, and a Stable. Oh, and then also Teleportation Circle, Theater, Training Area, and Trophy Room. We can see the I guess it's something sacristy is something to do with church, I guess. I don't know, clergy-based things. Ability to use a holy symbol or druidic focus. And then you can see, again, they continue to have the craft, trade, but then the theater gives empower. The training area also gives empower. Then the trophy room allows research. Then we have the archive, meditation chamber, menagerie, observatory, pub, reliquary, demiplane, guild hall, sanctum, and war room, again allowing different things. Certain orders can be issued to these facilities, have additional prerequisites. Okay, so if they have the asterisks, right, they have specialty things. Okay, so let's go to the arcane study, level 5. This is one of the ones you can get right out the gate. Ability to use an arcane focus. If you craft with this, it is roomy. It tells you the space requirements and the number of hirelings associated with it, and it can craft for a D4 bastion points. An arcane study is a place of quiet research that contains one or more of the following desks. You can do the following. Craft arcane focus. You commission the facility's hirelings to craft an arcane focus. The work takes 7 days and costs no money. The arcane focus remains in your bastion until you claim it or you have it sold for 10 gold pieces. Or craft a book. To craft a blank book costs 10 gold pieces, remains in your bastion. It can be sold for 25 gold pieces. The arcane study also imparts the following benefit. After spending a long rest in your bastion, you can cast Identify once within the next 7 days without expending a spell slot or material components. Okay, this is actually pretty cool. So we can craft some mundane stuff here in our bastion with our arcane study, or use it to cast Identify once every 7 days. People are saying they don't have access to this on D&D Beyond. We'll go check it out. We'll go to D&D Beyond. Sources. Unearthed Arcana. I see it right here. Bastions and Cantrips. Here it is. Either way. We'll keep going. So, do we want to go in order alphabetically? Or do we want to go from like level 5? I guess we'll just go in order alphabetically because it's going to be a pain in the ass of flipping around. All right, so the archive. This is a level 13 facility. This is ability to do research. This one, as you can see, gives you a D8 bastion point. So if you're maintaining this, then you'll actually get less. But a repository of valuable books, scrolls, and maps attached to a library behind a locked or secret door. Your archive contains 1 copy of a rare and valuable reference book chosen from the options on the reference book table below. While you're in there, you gain the book's benefits as noted. Okay, so it gives its own benefits. When you issue the research order in your facility, you commission the facility's hireling to search the archive for helpful lore. This work takes 7 days. Whoever does the work gains the knowledge as if they had cast the legend lore spell. A hireling who gains this knowledge shares it with you the next time you speak with them. And here are our reference books. Bigby's Handy Arcane Codex. You have advantage on Arcana checks to make when you take the study action to recall lore about spells, magic items, eldritch symbols, magical traditions, and plays of existence. Remember, the study action is an action that I keep forgetting about that exists in the 2024 rules. The Chronepsis Chronicles. Nice to see Chronepsis, the dragon, one of the dragon gods, make an appearance here. Advantage on history checks to make when you study action to recall lore about events, legendary people, ancient kingdoms, past disputes, wars, and lost civilizations. Investigations of the Inquisitive gives you advantage on investigation checks to make deductions based on clues or evidence or to recall lore about traps, ciphers, riddles, and gadgetry. Material musings on the nature of worldly things. Advantage on nature checks to study things about terrain, plants, animals, weather, and natural cycles. Or the old faith and other religions, advantage on religion checks to learn about deities, rites and prayers, religious hierarchy, holy symbols, and so on. It also has a special thing here, enlarging an archive. You can enlarge your archive to a vast facility, meaning it jumps up in size, by expending 2,000 gold pieces. If you do so, you gain 2 additional reference books chosen from the reference books table. Okay. Now we have the Armory, another level 5 one here. It has the trade option. So again, you have a variety of the armor, wooden shields, weapons, so on. When you issue the trade order to this facility, you commission the facility's hireling to stock the armory with armor, shields, weapons, and ammunition. This equipment costs you 100 gold pieces plus an extra 100 gold pieces for each bastion defender in your bastion. If your bastion has a smithy, the total is halved. Interesting, so you can combo those together. While your armory is stocked, your bastion defenders are harder to kill. When any event causes you to roll dice to determine if your bastion loses one or more of its defenders, roll a d8 in place of a d6 that you would normally roll when the event is over. The equipment in your armory is expended regardless of how many bastion defenders you have or how many you lost, leaving your armory depleted until you issue another trade order to the facility. This is interesting. So it kind of works within it's. I like this. So you could do the armory, and it basically just boosts. It's a thing there to boost your defenders to make them harder to kill. Then we have the barracks, which has the recruit option. A bastion can have more than one barracks, each of which is furnished to serve as sleeping quarters for up to 12 bastion defenders. Again, you may want to have bastion defenders to defend your thing while you're away in case you roll. We'll see what the bastion events are. Each time you issue the recruit order to this facility, up to 4 bastion defenders are recruited to your bastion and assigned quarters in this barracks. The recruitment costs you nothing. You can't issue the recruit order to this facility if it's already occupied. Keep track of the number of defenders housed in your barracks. If you lose defenders, deduct them from the roster. Assign names and personalities as you see fit. If you spend 2,000 gold pieces, you can increase this to a vast size area, allowing you to accommodate up to 25 defenders. Yeah, I don't know what people are complaining about audio being low. It seems good to me, but again, it's maybe even capping out on a little high side here. But anyway, all right, so that's pretty interesting. So if you want to have defenders, you need a barracks. And if you want them to be hardier, you'll want an armory. So it's very interesting how this plays out. So it's like you could have a bunch of cool facilities that let you do cool things like crafting or possibly making money. But if you didn't, like, you're easy to just be attacked and possibly destroyed. So it might behoove you to have a barracks so that you can have people to defend it, and then possibly an armory so that the people in the barracks have weapons. All right, so Demiplane. Now we're jumping up to a level 17 ability here. This gives you the Empower order. Right? It says a shadowy door opens on a flat surface. You choose the location. If you're in your bastion during a bastion turn, you can relocate the door to somewhere else. The door leads to a demiplane that takes the form of a room made of otherworldly materials. When you issue the Empower order to this facility, magical runes appear on the demiplane's wall, floor, and ceiling that last for 7 days. Until the runes disappear, you gain temporary hit points equal to 5 times your level after spending an entire long rest in the demiplane. Mind you, this is a level 17 ability here, but either way, you're going to get 5 times your level and temporary hit points for spending a night in this demiplane. It also imparts the following benefits. Fabrication. While in the demiplane, you can use a magic action to magically create a non-magical object of your choice from nothing. The object can be no bigger than a 5-foot cube in any dimension and must be made of wood, stone, clay, porcelain, glass, paper, non-precious crystal, or non-precious metal. You must finish a long rest before you can perform this again. And scry-proof, the demiplane and its contents can't be scryed upon using crystal balls, divination spells, or other magic. So Michael says in the chat, since defenders can be shared, having one player focus on everything to pump up defense, that is also true, right? Because if you have a shared facility, defenders can be shared, so that might be something to consider. Also, this is pretty interesting because you can craft non-magical stuff, and then you're safe from scry, and at level 17, possibly being scryed on by an enemy is a very real possibility. All right, then we have the Gaming Hall, which is a level 9 facility. A gaming hall offers recreation activities from chessboards to darts. When you issue the trade order to this facility, you commission the facility's hirelings to turn the gaming hall into a gambling den for 7 days. At the end of the 7th day, roll percentile dice and consult the gambling table to determine your portion of the house's winnings. So you can see here, this is pretty simple, potentially up to, if you roll very high, 10d6 times 10 gold pieces, which, again, given the fact that bastions are a means to sink money into and gold into your facility, having this to potentially generate gold in the background to possibly further your bastions might not be a bad idea. We also have the garden here, which has harvest as its things. You can have one or more garden. Each time, choose one of the following. A decorative garden. This is aesthetically pleasing. It's full of flowers and topiaries. Food garden, delicious mushroom or vegetables. An herb garden contains rare herbs, some of which can be used for medicinal uses. Or a poison garden, stocked with plants and fungi from which poisons and antitoxin can be extracted. Okay, I like what I'm hearing. While in your bastion, you can instruct the facility's hireling to change the garden from one type to another. This work takes 21 days, during which time no other activity can occur. When you issue the harvest order to the facility, you commission the facility's hirelings to collect items of value from the garden, as noted in the garden harvest table. This work takes 7 days. So if you go from decorative, you can create floral bouquets or vials of perfume that can be sold for 5 gold pieces. 10 bouquets or 10 vials of perfume each can be sold for 5 gold, so 50 gold for either one. Food produces food and vegetables that are sold to earn you 50 gold pieces, same price. Herb, the garden produces herbs that are used to create a potion of healing, so every 7 days you can have a potion of healing. Or poison, the garden produces plants that are used to either create 2 vials of antitoxin or 1 vial of basic poison. You can also enlarge the garden to a vast size by spending 2,000 gold pieces. A vast garden is equivalent to 2 roomy gardens and include 2 of the same type of garden or 2 different types. When you issue the harvest order to a vast garden, each component produces its own harvest. The vast garden gains 1 additional hireling. So you basically have 2 happening at the same time, which is pretty cool. Then we have greenhouse here. Let's see. A greenhouse is a spacious enclosure where rare plants and fungi are nurtured. 1 plant in your greenhouse has 3 magical fruits growing on it. Any creature that eats one of these fruits gains the benefit of a lesser restoration spell. Fruit that aren't eaten within 24 hours of being picked lose their magic. The plant replaces all picked fruits daily at dawn, and it can't be transplanted without killing it. When you issue the harvest order to this facility, choose one of the following options. You commission the facility's hireling to create a potion of greater healing. That takes 7 days to do so, or you can do it yourself. Or harvest poison. You commission the facility's hireling to extract 1 application of an ingested poison from rare plants or fungi. Choose the following type: Midnight Tears, Pale Tincture, Torpor, or Truth Serum. These are all contained in the DMG. Once harvested, it can't be done again. So the greenhouse is actually pretty nice, this level 9 ability. You get the 3 free uses of lesser restoration every 24 hours, and then every 7 days they can churn out a potion of greater healing or a poison of some kind. All right, the guild hall, this is again a level 17 one, so consider this, right? Is a room where members of your guild can discuss important matters. Your guild has roughly 50 members made up of skilled folk who live and work outside your bastion, usually in nearby settlements. Each time you issue the recruit order to this facility, you commission 1 or more members of your guild to perform a special assignment. Each guild in the sample guilds table below features the nature of the assignment. With your DM's permission and help, you can create new assignments. Oh boy. Oh my god. All right, here we go. Adventurers Guild. Symbol. They even have symbols here. Lit torch. You send adventurers to track down a beast that has a challenge rating of 2 or lower and is known to lair within 50 miles of your bastion. The adventurers slay or capture the creature, your choice, within a d6 plus 1 days. If the creature is slain and your bastion has a trophy room, you can add a trophy taken from the creature to that facility. I like how they're interplay here. If the creature is captured and your bastion has a menagerie, you can add the creature to the facility, provided you have space for it. The Bakers Guild. You assign bakers to create baked goods for a prestigious event that occurs within 7 days. You can receive payment in coin of 500 gold pieces or in the form of favor owed by the event's host. Brewers Guild. You assign brewers to deliver 50 40-gallon barrels of ale to your bastion in 7 days. These barrels can be sold for 10 gold pieces apiece. So 50 10 gold piece barrels here. Cartographers Guild. You assign cartographers to draw a map in 7 days. Alternatively, you can pay them 500 gold pieces to procure a map of a known adventure location and deliver it to your bastion in 7 days if the DM agrees a map exists. The Entertainment Guild. You assign entertainers to create a work of art in 7 days. The work gains recognition and high praise but has no monetary value. The DM can decide the work accrues value after your death. The Jewelers Guild. You assign jewelers to craft a gemstone or piece of jewelry worth no more than 1,000 gold pieces. It takes 7 days, and you must pay half the item's cost in raw materials. The Masons Guild. You assign masons to add a defensive wall to your bastion at no cost to you. Alternatively, you can have the masons perform this work for another character's bastion, provided their bastion is within 1 mile of yours. Each 5-foot square of defensive wall takes a day to build instead of 10. So this is cool because you can now add other defensive features, which is neat. The Shipbuilders Guild. You assign shipbuilders to build one of the vehicles in the waterborne vehicle section of the player's handbook. You pay the full cost of the vehicle. The work takes 1 day per 1,000 gold pieces of the vehicle's cost. A rowboat can be made in a day, for example. Or a Thieves Guild. You assign thieves to infiltrate a location within 50 miles of your bastion and steal a non-magical object from it. The object can be no bigger than a 5-foot cube and is delivered to your bastion within a d6 plus 1 days. A white key is left in its place. The DM may decide that this activity leaves you at risk for retaliation. Okay, interesting. Laboratory. This is a level 9 facility. Contains storage space. When you issue the craft order to this facility, choose one of the following options. Liquid concoction. You commission your facility's hireling to craft a vial of acid, a flask of alchemist's fire, or a bottle of ink once per 7 days. Or poison. The rare, it can be either... Oh, this is a... Oh, okay. So the other one was an ingested poison because it was from a greenhouse. This is a different kind. We have burnt author fumes, carrion crawler mucus, essence of ether, or malice once per 7 days. Or craft a potion. Could you craft a magic potion, or you can craft it yourself. It doesn't tell you what kind of work. Oh, okay. Here we go. Craft potions. So the laboratory can craft non-healing potions, and it shows you. It could also craft them in theory, but it has a minimum level requirement and a cost. It takes 7 days. You can see common, uncommon, rare, very rare, and legendary with associated costs. So the greenhouse can make things for cheaper and just kind of churn out by using the plants in there to just make greater healing potions. You could make them via the laboratory, but it seems like you'd be better off choosing other types of potions. The library here, this is another level 5, so one you'll get pretty early on, or could get to start. When you issue the research order to this facility, you commission the facility's hireling to research a topic or do research yourself. It can be a legend, a known location, a person of significance, etc. It takes 7 days. When the research concludes, you obtain up to 3 accurate pieces of information about what the topic were, previously unknown to you. Okay? The meditation chamber, which is a level 13 one. When you issue the Empower order to this facility, you enable all of your bastion's hirelings to use the meditation chamber to gain a measure of inner peace. You can immediately issue a bastion order to one of your bastion's other facilities. Oh, interesting. Even if that facility has already been issued an order on this bastion turn. Very interesting. So again, more interplay. When you issue the Empower order to this facility, you enable all your bastion's hirelings to use this meditation chamber to gain a measure of inner peace. You can immediately issue a bastion order to one of... Okay, even if they've already issued it. Okay, and then lastly, it also imparts the following benefit. Fortify self. You can meditate in this facility over a period of 7 days to fortify your mind, body, and spirit. If you leave the bastion during this time, you gain no benefit. Otherwise, at the end of the 7th day, you get advantage on 2 kinds of saving throws for the next 7 days, chosen randomly from the save below. So pick a saving throw, you'll have advantage on it for the next 7 days. This is going to be very strong for people who don't have Warcaster but want advantage on Constitution saving throws. Yes, it's essentially Action Surge for a special facility. Menagerie. Okay, this I'm curious about, this magical menagerie thing. Level 13. Keeps various creatures. Okay. When you issue the recruit order to this facility, you commission the facility's hirelings to add a creature from the menagerie creatures table to your menagerie. It takes 7 days and has an amount of associated cost. The menagerie is big enough to contain 4 large creatures. 4 small or medium creatures can occupy the same space as 1 large creature. Okay. Keep track of the creatures housed in your menagerie as they count as bastion defenders. Interesting. Deduct any you lose from your Bastion Defenders roster. You can choose not to count 1 or more of these creatures as Bastion Defenders, in which case they won't be called on to defend the Bastion. Okay, here we go. Ape, black bear, brown bear, constrictor snake, crocodile, dire wolf, giant scorpion, giant vulture, hyena, jackal, lion, owlbear, panther, or tiger. And there's obviously associated costs with each of these. So this is interesting. You could basically have a menagerie of animals to add to your ability to defend your bastion. Release the owlbears. I like that. Yeah. At the DM's option, you can add different creatures other than shown in this table. The cost of a creature depends on its challenge rating as shown on the menagerie creatures table below, and we can see there's challenge ratings associated with all of these going up to challenge rating 3. So this could be a really fun thing, again, adding more roleplay options for your druid or ranger types to have crocodiles or owl bears or black bears or whatever to your thing. And then if it comes under attack, send forth your creatures to defend. Just a cool thing to be different from just straight up soldiers in a barracks. All right, we have the observatory here. This is a spellcasting one. This is level 13. You can use your observatory to peer into the far corners of wild space and the astral plane, if not the heavens. Whenever you spend an entire long rest in your observatory, you can cast Contact Other Plane within the next 7 days without expending a spell slot. So you don't even have to do it then, you have 7 days to cast it. When you issue the Empower Order to this facility, you enable yourself or the facility's hirelings to explore the eldritch mysteries of the stars for 7 consecutive nights. At the end of that time, roll a die. If the number rolled is even, nothing is gained. If the number rolled is odd, an unknown power bestows one of the following supernatural charms on you or another creature of your choice. That is the same on the same plane of existence. Charm of Dark Vision, Charm of Heroism, or Charm of Vitality. Let's go ahead. I don't remember what all these are. I think Charm of Dark Vision is just Dark Vision. Charms. Here we go. Dungeon Master's Guide. You allows you to cast the Dark Vision spell as an action 3 times before it goes away. Charm of Heroism lets you gives you the benefit of a potion of heroism. For 1 hour, you gain 10 temporary hit points and the effects of a bless spell. And then was the last Charm of Vitality gives you a potion of vitality, which just basically removes exhaustion from you. Okay, that one's only okay. All right, the pub, level 13 facility. You can decide what kind of pub it is. When you issue the research order to this facility, you commission the pub's bartender to gather information from spies who are aware of all important events happening within 10 miles of your bastion over the next 7 days. During that time, these spies can divulge the location of any creature that is familiar to you, provided it's within 50 miles of your bastion and not hidden by magic or confined by a location the DM deems beyond spy network capabilities. If the spies learn the target's location, they also learn where that creature has been for the previous 7 days. In addition, the pub has 1 magical beverage on tap, chosen from the options in the pub special below. Okay, if the beverage is Bigby's Burden, drinking this beverage grants the benefit of the Enlarge Reduce spell. It has a duration of 24 hours, for which you get no saving throw. Okay. Kiss of the Spider Queen, drinking this beverage grants you the effect of Spider Climb for 24 hours. Moonlight Serenade, drinking this beverage gives you dark vision within 60 feet for 24 hours. If you already have it, it's extended by 60. Positive Reinforcement, this gives you resistance to necrotic damage for 24 hours. Or Sterner Stuff, it makes you immune to the Frightened condition for 24 hours. Enlarging a pub, you can enlarge your pub to a vast facility by spending 2,000 gold pieces. If you do, the pub can have 2 magical beverages from the pub table. A vast pub contains 3 additional hirelings for a total of 4. The new hirelings are servers. Assign them names and personalities. So you have the bartender and then the servers. All right, the reliquary. This is a kind of a holy symbol druidic focus one. Okay, whenever you spend a long rest in your bastion, you gain greater restoration. You can cast Greater Restoration once within the next 7 days without material components or expending a spell slot. That is very powerful. Between this, and I think it was the greenhouse that gave you the fruit for lesser restoration, this is a lot of powerful kind of debuff cleansing that you can have here. When you issue the harvest order to the reliquary, you commission the facility's hireling to produce a specially prepared talisman for your use. The talisman usually takes the form of an amulet, a rune-carved box, a statuette, etc. The work takes 7 days and costs no money. You can use this talisman as a spellcasting focus, ignoring any spell's material components, including those that have a cost of 1,000 gold pieces or less. The talisman can be used in this way only once and must be returned to your reliquary. Another harvest order prepares it for use again. So not only does it give you a freebie greater restoration once every 7 days, it also gives you basically a get out of jail free card for a material component up to 1,000 gold pieces. That's pretty cool. All right, sacristy. I don't even know what this one is, but here we go. Serves as a preparation and storage room for sacred items investments for your religion. Allows you to regain 1 expended spell slot of level 5 or lower after spending an entire short rest in your bastion. You can't gain this benefit again until you finish a long rest. I'm not sure how useful that is, honestly. I guess it depends on how frequently you go to your bastion, but like you're going to go there for a short rest and then pop out. It seems kind of odd to me. All right. When you issue the craft order for your sacristy, what else can you get? Once every 7 days, you can make a flask of holy water. Spend the gold pieces during the creation process for a maximum of every 100 gold pieces you spend, up to a maximum of 500 gold pieces. The damage dealt by the... Oh, interesting. For every 100 gold pieces you spend, up to a maximum of 500 gold pieces, the damage dealt by the holy water increases by a d6. So you just pray that much harder, and your water is that much holier that it does additional d6s worth of damage. All right, and then craft sacred item. This is interesting. You commission your facility's hireling to craft a temporary magic item, the properties of which last for 7 days, and then disappear. Choose one of the following items: Pearl of Power, Periapt of Wound Closure, Ring of Water Walking, or Pair of Sending Stones, Staff of the Adder, Staff of the Python, or Wand of Magic Detection. The work takes 7 days and costs you 200 gold pieces. That's interesting that it's like a temporary magic item. This could be pretty powerful, though, because you could do a lot with some of those, even if you only have them for 7 days. That's pretty cool. Paying the church to be holier. Yeah, I know, right? Not holy water, holier water. Exactly. All right, so Sanctuary. This is another one of the holy symbol ones here. Okay, in the Sanctuary imparts the following benefits. Cast Healing Word. You can draw on the power of your Sanctuary to heal yourself or another. After spending a long rest in the Bastion, you can cast Healing Word once within the next 7 days without expending a spell slot. The spell's level is half your level rounded down. Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting because technically, if you were, somebody had access to a holy symbol or druidic focus, and you didn't have Healing Word as a spell, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you didn't, you could have a freebie one here, or you could just have an extra one that doesn't expend a spell slot, and it might be a little bit stronger than the way you want to cast it, depending on your level. And then you also have Craft Sacred Focus. You can commission the facility's hireling to make a druidic focus or a holy symbol. And then again, or you can sell that if you want in 7 days. We have a Sanctum. This is the highest level one for the holy kind of group here. Is a place of solace and healing. When you issue the Empower Order to this facility, you inspire its hirelings to perform daily rites that benefit you or another player character of your choice. Each time the beneficiary finishes a long rest, they gain... Each time they finish a long rest, they gain temporary hit points equal to your level. This lasts for 7 days. So for 7 days, you're going to wake up after a long rest with level worth of temporary hit points. It also imparts the following benefits. Heal. Whenever you spend a long rest in the Bastion, you can cast a heal spell once within the next 7 days without expending a spell slot. That's huge. A freebie heal once every 7, for 7 day time period. That's pretty powerful. And then Sanctum Recall. When you cast Word of Recall, you can make the Sanctum the destination of the spell instead of any other place you've designated. In addition, one creature of your choice that arrives in the Sanctum via this spell gets the benefit of a heal spell. Wow. That's kind of cool. So you're going to get temporary hit points for somebody equal to their level, which at minimum is going to be 17, every day for 7 days. Then you spend a long rest there, you get a freebie heal once per 7 days without expending a spell slot, and then you can cast Word of Recall wherever you want and set up a different location. This can also be a default one, and then anybody who gets sent here, one of the people here can get the heal spell immediately, which is kind of cool. I guess if the Bastion event is like leading to a fight at your Bastion, you want to get everybody back, and somebody's damaged, you can pop them up with a heal before they get there. That's kind of cool. Yeah, all right. Scriptorium. This is a level 9 facility. When you issue the craft order for this facility, you can choose Book Replica. You commission the facility's hireling to make a copy of a non-magical book. It takes 7 days. Paperwork. You commission the facility's hireling to create up to 50 copies of a broadsheet, a pamphlet, or another loose-leaf paper product. The work takes 7 days and costs a GP per copy. At no additional cost in time or money, the facility's hireling can distribute the paperwork to one or more locations within 10 miles. I guess if you're trying to start a campaign for something, you can do that. Or craft a scroll. You commission the facility's hireling to craft a magical scroll once per 7 days. And then again, it has levels here, kind of what we saw with the potions. Smithy, all right. When you issue the craft order for the smithy, ammunition or simple weapon, you commission the facility's hireling to craft up to 20 pieces of ammunition or one simple weapon, which takes 7 days and costs half the normal price. You can commission a Masterwork simple weapon. Masterwork simple weapon, which takes 14 days and costs 800 gold pieces. A Masterwork simple weapon has no special properties until magic weapon is cast on it. When that spell ends, the Masterwork weapon retains the magic permanently, becoming a +1 weapon. That is very interesting. I like that a lot. So spend a little extra time and a little extra gold to basically make this a Masterwork weapon. I was wondering how they were going to handle if they were going to do something with this. And then if anybody casts magic weapon on this, it becomes a permanent +1 weapon. As long as you have somebody in your party that can cast magic weapon, and a lot of classes do have access to it, you can turn something that was just a mundane weapon now into a permanent +1 weapon for the cost of 800 gold pieces and 14 days. And remind you, a smithy is available as soon as you access bastions, as long as you have either a fighting style or unarmored defense feature. So that's pretty cool. And then armor or equipment. Let's see if they have anything for that. You can use the hireling to craft a suit of medium or heavy armor, excluding hide, 20 caltrops, a chain 10 feet, a crowbar, a grappling hook, a hammer, sledge or regular, 4 horseshoes, a hunting trap, a set of manacles, a miner's pick, 10 iron spikes or pitons, an iron pot, a metal shield, or a shovel. The work takes 7 days or 21 days for a suit of armor and costs half. Wait a minute. Hold on. Craft a suit of heavy armor. So let's think plate mail. Okay. You can craft plate mail in 21 days at half the cost. That's actually pretty good. So 3 weeks in game, right? 3 7-day periods. So you can craft someone, commission them to make a suit of heavy armor in 21 days for 750 gold pieces. That's pretty good. All right, let's see if they have something similar for martial weapons. You commission the hirelings to craft a martial weapon, which takes 14 days and costs you half the normal work. Martial weapon, or a masterwork martial weapon, which takes 21 days and 800 gold pieces. So simple weapon is 14 days and 800 gold pieces. A martial weapon is 21 days. So 21 days and 800 gold pieces. You can basically, if somebody has magic weapon, which again, especially if there's someone like a cleric or a druid or a wizard who can swap their spells, can just take for that day magic weapon, cast it on this masterwork weapon. Now it's a permanent +1 weapon and swap spells to a later date. That's pretty cool. Or use someone in the scriptorium to craft a scroll, to make a scroll of magic weapon and do it that way. No, there are no masterwork weapons in 5e. That's a thing from previous editions. There's nothing like that in 5e. All right, now we're on to stable. This is a level 9 feature here. All right, a bastion can have more than one stable. Each stable comes with 1 riding horse or a camel or 2 ponies and 2 mules. The facility is big enough to house 3 large animals. 2 medium creatures occupy the same space as 1 large creature. The facility's hireling looks after them. After a beast that can serve as a mount spends at least 14 days in this facility, all animal handling checks made with respect to it, have advantage as the animal becomes easier to handle. When you issue the trade order to this facility, you commission the facility's hireling to buy or sell 1 or more mounts at normal cost, keeping the ones you buy in your stable. The work takes 7 days. Depends on the type of animal. The mounts and other animals give standard prices for various amounts. When you sell a mount from your stable, the buyer pays you 20% more than the standard price. This profit increases to 50% when you reach 13th level and 100% when you reach 17th level. So you're basically getting more money for the cost of these animals because yours are so well trained. And enlarging a stable, you can enlarge your stable to vast by spending 2,000 gold pieces. If you do so, you can store up to 6 animals. Let's see. Storehouse. Okay. Let's see. This cool dark space is made to contain trade goods. When you issue the trade order to this facility, its hireling spends the next 7 days procuring non-magical items that have a total value of 500 gold pieces or less and stores them in the storehouse, or the hireling uses those 7 days to sell the goods in the storehouse. You bear the total cost of any purchases, and the maximum value of these items is 2,000 gold pieces when you reach 9, 5,000, and 13. The equipment chapter of the player's handbook has tables of common goods that can be bought and sold. When you sell goods from your storehouse, the buyer pays 10% more than the standard price. The profit increases to 20%. So this is just, I guess, a means to make some gold, the storehouse. Nothing crazy here. Teleportation circle. This could be pretty big. Each time you issue the recruit order to this facility, your bastion extends an invitation to a friendly mage or a friendly archmage if you're level 17 or higher. Roll any die. If the number rolled is odd, the invitee declines the invitation. You gain no benefit. If the number rolled is even, the invitee accepts the invitation and arrives in your bastion via teleportation circle. They stay for 7 days. While you are in the bastion, you can ask the visiting mage or archmage to cast one spell. In the case of a mage, choose a wizard spell of level 4 or lower. In the case of an archmage, choose a wizard spell of level 8 or lower. The spell might be one the visitor has prepared, or it might be written in a spell book. If the spell has more material components, you must pay them. I honestly thought there was going to be you just establish a permanent teleportation circle at your bastion facility, but it's interesting that it's a means to summon in a mage to do spellcasting services for you. All right, next up we have the theater. When you use the Empower order on this facility, its hirelings begin work on a theatrical production or concert. Rehearsals and other preparations take 14 days, followed by at least 7 days of performance. A character can contribute to the production in one of the following ways. Composer-writer, a character can compose music or write a script for a concert. This takes 14 days. Conductor-director, a character who remains in the bastion for the entirety, can serve as the concert's conductor or production director. Or performer, a character who remains in the bastion for an entirety of the rehearsal period, can be the star performer in one or more performances. One of the theater's hirelings can serve as an understudy for additional performances. At the end of the rehearsal period, each character who contributed to the concert or production must make a performance check, DC 15. If one or more of these checks succeed, then fail, you and any other character who contributed to the concert gain a theater die. Oh boy, a D6. This die increases to a D8 at 13 and a D10 at 17. At any point after the rehearsals end, a character can expend their theater die to roll it and add it to the number rolled to one ability check, attack roll, or saving throw. If a character hasn't expended their theater die before gaining another, their first die is lost. So it's essentially a free bardic inspiration that would, in theory, stack with bardic inspiration that has no expiration point that you can get if you're part of this performance. So that's kind of cool. Training area. This is level 9. A training area might be an open courtyard, gymnasium, etc. When a training area becomes part of your bastion, choose one trainer from the expert trainers table. Okay. On each bastion turn, you can replace this. When you issue the Empower order to this facility, the facility's hirelings conduct training exercises for 7 days. Any character who trains here for at least 8 hours on each of those days gains a benefit at the end of the training period. The benefit depends on which trainer is present. The benefit lasts for 7 days. If you get the Battle Expert, once per turn, when you take damage from an attack made with an unarmed strike or weapon, you can reduce this damage by a D4, provided you don't. So this lasts for 7 days. So once per turn, you can just reduce the damage from a weapon or an unarmed strike by a D4. No reaction required, just you could do it. Skills Expert, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: acrobatics, athletics, performance, sleight of hand, or stealth. Tools Expert, gain proficiency in musical instrument or a tool of your choice. Unarmed Combat Expert, when you use an unarmed strike to damage a target, the attack does a D4 bludgeoning damage on a hit. Or Weapon Expert, choose a type of simple or martial weapon such as spear or longbow. If you aren't proficient, you gain proficiency. If you already are, you can use its mastery property for the next 7 days. That's kind of cool. So trophy room. Okay. You can issue the research property for one of the following: research lore. You commission the facility's hireling to research a topic of your choice, or you do research yourself. The topic can be a legend, creature, famous object. The topic need not be directly related to items on display. It takes 7 days. When the research concludes, you can obtain up to 3 accurate pieces of information about the topic that you were previously unknown to you. Or trinket trophy. You commission the facility's hireling to search for a trinket that might be of use to you. It takes 7 days. When the research concludes, roll a die. If the number rolled is odd, it finds nothing useful. If it's even, the hireling finds a trinket with a previously unknown magical property. You can decide what the trinket looks like, or use the trinket table in the player's handbook. As a magic action, a creature can use the trinket to cast a particular spell requiring no components. Here are the spells to choose from: Clairvoyance, Death Ward, Find Traps, Locate Creature, Magic Weapon, Remove Curse, or Speak with Dead. That's actually really powerful because you can do a lot with some of those spells. Very cool. All right, then we have War Room, level 17 here. The War Room is where you plan military actions in consultation with an inner circle of loyal lieutenants, each one a battle-hardened veteran per the stat block, whose alignment matches yours. You start with 2 lieutenants, but can add more as described below. If your bastion lacks facilities to house your lieutenants, they secure accommodations in the inn or settle closest to your bastion. Lieutenants don't count as bastion defenders, but if your bastion is attacked, each lieutenant housed in your bastion reduces by 1 the number of dice you roll to determine how many bastion defenders are lost. The War Room contains war memorabilia, blah, blah, blah. When you issue the recruit order, you get the following. You gain 1 new lieutenant. You can have up to 10 lieutenants at a time. Assign names and personalities as you see fit. Recruit soldiers. You commission 1 or more of your lieutenants to assemble a small army. Each lieutenant can muster 100 guards in 7 days to fight for your cause. Reduce that number to 20 guards if you want them to be mounted on riding horses. It costs you 1 gold piece per day to feed each guard and each horse in your army. Whenever the army or wherever the army goes, it must be led by you or at least one of your lieutenants, or else it disbands immediately. The army also disbands if it goes 1 day without being fed. Otherwise, the army remains until it is destroyed or you command it to disband. You can't issue this recruit order again until your current army disbands or is destroyed. Okay. And then lastly, we have Workshop here, which has the craft opportunity. After spending an entire short rest in your workshop, you gain Heroic Advantage, which is the new version of Inspiration. You can't gain this benefit until you finish a long rest. Until you finish a long rest. When you issue the craft order within this facility, you commission the facility's hireling to craft 1 tiny, non-magical object that can be made using carpenter's tools, cobbler's tools, glassblowers tools, mason's tools, potter's tools, tinker's tools, weaver's tools, woodcutter's tools. Examples include a costume, a gaming set, a musical instrument, a spellcasting focus, a bottle, a shoe, a toy. Can be done every 7 days, can be sold for 10 gold pieces. We made it through all the special facilities of the bastions, finally. I gotta say, you could probably run an entire campaign just dealing with the nonsense within these bastions. Just all the intricacies of all the different workers, if you want to give them personalities and they could have issues that they're having that you want to go resolve or your players might want to resolve. There's a lot. All right, then the fall of a bastion. What happens? How do you lose stuff? If a character issues no orders to their bastion or a number of consecutive bastion turns equal to the character's level, the hirelings abandon the bastion and the site is eventually looted. If the character returns later, they have no option to start they have the option to start a new bastion, perhaps building it amid the ruins of the old one. A character can give up their bastion any time, releasing the bastion's hirelings and abandoning the location. The divested bastion is quickly vacated, eventually looted, and might even be burned to the ground. In either case, the player can work with the DM to establish a new bastion, use the special facility acquisition table to determine how many special facilities come with it. The new bastion also starts with 2 basic facilities. All right, now we're on to bastion events. This is what I wanted to see. At the end of any bastion turn in which a character issues the maintain order to their bastion, the DM, which means like if you're not there, you're typically going to issue maintain. So that means it's safe if you're there. If you're not, maybe something happens. If an event occurs, the DM reads the event aloud to the players whose character controls that bastion. The event is resolved immediately, with the player and the DM working together to expand story details as needed. Bastion events occur only when a bastion is operated under the maintain order, which often means that the bastion's owner is not present. Kind of what I was just saying, yeah. That means these events can be opportunities for the player to take on the role of the bastion's hirelings and roleplay their reactions to these events. The DM can even decide to turn a bastion event into a sort of cutscene where each players take on the role of one of the bastion's hirelings. All right, so it's a d20 roll. On a roll of 1 to 9, nothing happens. 10 is an attack. 11 to 12 is lost hirelings. 13 to 14 is refugees. 15 friendly visitors. 16 request for aid. 17 honored guest. 18 extraordinary opportunity. 19 combat criminal hireling. Or 20 magical discovery. So attack. A hostile force attacks your bastion but is defeated. Roll 66. For each die that rolls a 1, 1 bastion defender dies. Remove these bastion defenders from your bastion's roster. In addition, one of the bastion's special facilities is damaged and forced to shut down. If the bastion has no defenders, or if no bastion defenders are left after the attack, a second special facility is also shut down. A special facility that shuts down can't be used on your next bastion turn, after which it is repaired and operational again at no cost to you. A special facility that is shut down generates no points. Okay, So this is again why we see some of these other things allow you to lessen the number of dice rolled based on the facilities you choose. That makes sense. Criminal hireling. One of your bastion's hirelings was a criminal past. Let's see. Let's see. It comes to light when officials or bounty hunters visit your bastion. You can retain the hireling by paying a bribe of a d6 times 100 gold pieces. Otherwise, the hireling is arrested and taken away. If the loss leaves one of your facilities without hirelings, it can't be used until your next bastion turn. Extraordinary opportunity. You gain an additional 2d4 bastion points if you spend 500 gold pieces to host a festival, fund a research, or power spellcaster. Okay, so that's kind of cool. You can actually get a lot more bastion points with this particular one. Friendly visitors come to your bastion. They offer a d6 times 100 gold pieces for the brief use of the facility. For example, a caravan might want to use your workshop to repair its wagons. Pilgrims might want to rest in the sanctuary, etc. Okay. Honored guest. A guest comes to stay at your bastion. Work with your DM to determine the stranger's identity. Roll on the honored guest table or choose one of the options from below. We have a d4 guest here, right? Renowned guest is to stay at your bastion. It gives a letter of recommendation you can use to sway an important person. The guest requests sanctuary while avoiding persecution. They leave you a gift of some gold. The guests are a group of friendly mercenaries, giving you 4 additional bastion defenders. Or the guest is a dragon or some other flying creature that perches atop your bastion until the next bastion turn. It is indifferent towards others, but is hostile if it's attacked. You might be able to bribe the creature to stay. That's kind of cool. Lost hirelings. One of your bastion special facilities loses its hirelings. This causes the departure. What causes it's up to you. You won't have access to that facility till the next turn. Magical discovery. Your hirelings accidentally discover or create an uncommon magic item of your choice. Of your choice. Interesting. The weapon, the magic item can't be a suit of armor, a shield, or a weapon. Oh, and its magic is temporary. Its properties start to function when you claim the item and last until the start of your next bastion turn. That's a bummer. So it's only a 7-day magic item, but still kind of cool. Refugees. A group of 2d4 refugees fleeing from a monster, attack, a natural disaster, or something seek refuge at your bastion. If your bastion lacks a basic facility large enough to house them, they camp right outside. They offer you a d6 times 100 gold pieces as payment for your hospitality. They stay until you find them a new home, or hostile force attacks your bastion, or request for aid. Your bastion is called upon by a local leader. Perhaps there's a search for a missing person or brigands in the area. Roll a d6 for each bastion defender you send. If the die rolls total 10 or higher, the problem is solved, and you earn a reward of d6 times 100 gold pieces. If the result totals less than 10, the problem is still solved, but the reward is halved and one of your bastion defenders is killed. All right, bastions done. That means we have 2.5 pages of cantrips. All right, here we go. For those of you who might just be joining us, this is the newest Unearthed Arcana Playtest session, or Packet 8. It is available on D&D Beyond, although some people seem to be having trouble finding it. It's available here. That's not it. It is available. Let me go back to it. Under Sources, Unearthed Arcana, and then right at the top here, Bastions and Cantrips. All right, revised cantrips. A spell's description contains one or more tags. For example, if it has the wizard tag, it's on the wizard spell list. Okay, design updates. Acid Splash now creates a 5-foot radius sphere that can affect any creature caught in it and has evocation instead of conjuration. Makes sense. The school change unites the spell with the sorcerer and wizard's other direct damage acid spells. Blade Ward is now a reaction that imposes disadvantage on a creature's melee attack roll. Chill Touch is now a spell that deals a d10 rather than a d8, and it no longer has rarely used undead specific effect. Still calling it Chill Touch, though, huh? Friends now require the target to make a save against being charmed briefly. Poison Spray now has a range of 30 feet rather than 10 feet, and it uses an attack roll rather than a saving throw. It's also now Necromancy as opposed to Conjuration. That Poison Spray change is huge, by the way. Produce Flame is now a bonus action, but the attack portion is still an action. The range of the spell is increased to 20 feet, and the range of the attack has now increased to 60 feet. We'll have to read that. Also, the attack can now target creatures or objects. Hi, buddy. Oh my god, I have Wolverine here. What's going on, guys? Oh, hi, bud. Hi.
Okay. Halloween costume came in the mail, so we had to try it out.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool.
Okay.
All right, bye, boys. All right, Shillelagh now improves. Oh, this is big. Now improves at higher levels, and it gives you the option of dealing force damage. Oh, that's big. That's so good. Shocking Grasp now shuts down opportunity attacks rather than all reactions. Interesting. Shutting down all reactions is too powerful for a cantrip. This cantrip has always been meant to provide a partial disengage, which it still does. Like other lightning spells, the spell also no longer makes distinctions about whether the target is wearing metal. Spare the Dying is now ranged, yes, rather than touch, and the range increases as you level. Let's go. And it's on the Druid list. And True Strike is now an attack with a weapon that uses... Oh my god. Okay. That uses your spellcasting ability modifier rather than strength or dexterity. Okay, let's go. Well, Grave Clerics, for those of you saying rip Grave Clerics, Grave Clerics aren't being updated in the 2024 rulebook, so they might get updated in a future update, but let's see. Acid Splash. Here's the update. On the Sorcerer and Wizard table, or list, range of 60 feet, you create an acidic bubble and hurl it at a range within point within range, where it explodes in a 5-foot radius sphere. Each creature in that sphere must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take a d6 acid damage, and then it increases as we expect. Okay, so it explodes, it hits a point, explodes in a 5-foot radius sphere. So I guess I'm having a hard time visualizing a 5-foot radius sphere because a spot is 5 feet, but either way. Yeah, Noobly King, you're exactly what I'm saying. Isn't a 5-foot radius 1 square? It is. So, because more than that, I'm not entirely sure. 5-foot radius. Oh, 5-foot radius means 10 by 10. I'm thinking diameter. Yeah, so it's 2 squares. It's a circular area. 10 by 10. Yep, okay. So that's actually better because it has the opportunity to hit actually more enemies than it did previously. So big buff to Acid Splash, I think. Also, it now being Evocation means it works with Evocation wizard stuff, so that's good. Blade Ward. Bard, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. I don't recall if it was on the Bard list previously. Reaction, which you take in response to a visible creature targeting you with a melee attack. You trace a sigil of warding. Disadvantage. This is really good, guys. Especially in a world where Shield also is like a spell, but like not on the Bard list. To just be able to reactionary give somebody, like give yourself disadvantage. Now it's when which you take in response to a creature targeting you with a melee attack. So that's the difference. It's not if they hit you and then turn it into disadvantage, but when they're targeting you with an attack, you can force disadvantage on it. That's still really strong. However, it is before they hit. So it might have been wasted if their first roll was lower, but it's not a bad thing. Also, this is interesting. With a melee attack too, good point, melee attack only. But think about this. If you were in a situation where an enemy had like character levels or something and was going to sneak attack you, you could, in theory, use this to negate that sneak attack by giving them disadvantage. Now, the roll might still be a straight roll depending on situations, but this is a potential means to shut down an incoming sneak attack. However, it is only listed to a melee attack, but notice melee attack, not melee spell attack or melee weapon attack. So it would work against spells as well. Still a definite upgrade, I think, to Blade Ward, in my opinion. So I think that's good. It does not protect against arrows. That is true. Correct, it is a cantrip compared to a first level spell slot. You can do it as much as you want, which is nice. It is useful now. It would only work against the first attack, as far as I could tell, right? Traces imposing disadvantage on the creature's attack roll against you. Yeah, so it would only work on the first attack, not on multiple attacks. But either way, that's still good. Chill Touch. Necromancy cantrip. It's a range of touch now. What? Whoa, did they mention that? I missed this now that it's a touch spell. Okay, so now it's a touch spell, and they made it a D10. So at least it has touch in there, which is something, right? So that's a... Would you consider this? I consider this a nerf in every way, right? So it's sorcerer, warlock, wizard. So warlocks do get access to it. I don't remember if they did before. It is a melee spell, melee touch attack. Does a D10 damage, so it did get a boost in its damage, and they still can't heal until the start of their next turn. But it also no longer has the range capacity. I still think you should have made it be cold damage if you want to call it chill touch. It's more so now that it is a touch spell, it fits more. So I do like it better. Because I often found that it was like, it was a toss-up between chill touch and firebolt, right? Firebolt did a D10 damage, had 120-foot range. Ray of Frost had the nice shutdown of the limiting of the movement, but it was 60-foot range. Chill touch was a D8 damage, but 120-foot. So I guess this gives you another melee option as opposed to just Shocking Grasp. Touch means you can cast it through a familiar. That's true. Yeah, I know. I was going to say Baldur's Gate 3 calls it Bone Chill, which makes more sense. I always like Lich Slap was a good name for it. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Chill Touch was 120 feet, if I recall. Let's go look. Sorry if you can hear my dogs barking, by the way. Chill Touch. 120 foot, yeah. So. Yeah, like I said, I would often use this if I didn't want to just be stuck with something like Firebolt. Okay, Friends. Bard, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. Action, range of 10 feet, concentration up to 10 minutes, or up to 1 minute, I'm sorry. You magically emanate a sense of friendship towards one visible creature within range. The target must make a wisdom saving throw or have the charmed condition for the duration. The target succeeds automatically if it isn't humanoid, if you're fighting it, or if you've cast the spell on it within the past 24 hours. The spell ends early if the target takes damage, or if you make an attack roll, deal damage, or force anyone to make a saving throw. So let's go look at Friends, because did Friends used to have this thing where like the people would be like immediately like against you, like they'd be hostile towards you? I meant Friends, the spell. Friends. Okay, if we look at Friends, yeah. You gave you advantage on all charisma checks directed at that creature if it isn't hostile. When its spell ends, the creature realized you used magic to influence its mood and becomes hostile towards you. So it automatically made them hostile towards you no matter what. So now they're being afflicted with the charmed condition, which states they can't attack the charmer or the target the charmer with harmful abilities or effects. They have advantage on any ability check to interact socially with the creature. So previously what it had said was it was advantage on all charisma checks. Now it's advantage on any ability check in case you have some funky situation with other ability checks for socially interacting. I like this. This is a lot cleaner, in my opinion, and they removed the auto hostility. Now, you did cast a spell on them. They may know that you did this, so consider that, but either way. And then Poison Spray, now is Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. I think that was standard. Has a range of 30 feet, which is a nice little increase to that. You make a ranged spell attack against the target, and it takes a d12 damage. This I like a lot more. I almost never used Poison Spray in the past. Mostly, I mean, it still may be limited to the fact that a lot of creatures have resistance and or immunity to poison damage. But I like that it's a spell attack. I like that you can possibly crit it, and it's d12s, which is nice, so it has that boost with that as well, so I appreciate that. Okay. Moving on, we have Produce Flame. Now, this was changed. This is still only available to the Druid. It is a bonus action to cast. A flickering flame, the duration is 10 minutes. A flickering flame appears in your hand and remains for the duration of 10 minutes. While there, the flame emits no heat, ignites nothing, and it sheds bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light for an additional 20 feet. The spell ends if you dismiss it as a bonus action or if you cast it again. Until the spell ends, you can take a magic action to hurl the fire at an object or creature within 60 feet of you. Make a ranged spell attack. On a hit, the target takes a d8 fire damage. Okay. So was was the thing there that it always emits no heat and creates and ignites nothing? Was that always there? I don't recall. Produce flame. Sheds bright light. It remains there for the duration. Harms neither you nor your equipment. So it could ignite things previously. Sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for another 10 feet. It's now 20-foot radius, so an increase in the radius from 10 to 20. You can also attack with it. And when you used it before, it was a range of 30 feet. And I think it was only creatures? At only creatures. All right, so general improvements to produce flame. So if you want to use it as a light source, you can use it as a light source as just a bonus action to cast it. It lasts for 10 minutes. Non-concentration, too, by the way. It emits no heat and ignites nothing, so you could put it in your backpack if you wanted. No big deal with that. Or put your hand in your pocket and you won't set your pants on fire. It sheds brighter light in an additional 10 feet for both. And then again, you can now hurl it at a creature or an object, and the range was doubled to 60 feet. This is a buff all around for Produce Flame. Yes, Ronald, this is the newest playtest here, which is Bastions and Cantrips. We already covered the Bastions, which is player housing. We're moved on to Cantrips here. Shillelagh. Now, this I'm very curious about. It's a bonus action, range of touch, duration 1 minute, non-concentration. A club or quarterstaff you are holding is now imbued with nature's power. For the duration, you can use your spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength for the attack roll for melee damage with this thing. The damage die becomes a d8. If the attack deals damage, it can be force damage or your weapon's natural damage type, your choice. So now you get to pick. Is it going to be bludgeoning damage or force damage? The spell ends early if you cast it again. And then it says the spell's damage die wow, this is good. It goes up to a d10 damage at level 5, a d12 damage at level 11, and 2d6 damage at level 17. That is very interesting and a very cool upgrade. Yeah. I really, really like this change to Shillelagh a lot. So it gives you the versatility of damage to be... Was Shillelagh concentration before? I don't think so. Just want to double check that. Yeah, no. So Shillelagh, just general improvements across the board. It is a bonus action. You can choose now either force damage or bludgeoning damage, whatever you see fit. And it just gets freebie increase in damage over time, all the way up to doing 2d6 damage at level 17, which is pretty nuts. I'd say 2d6 is an increase in damage over a d8, in my opinion. Also, consider the fact that this can possibly interact with some other things that I'm like, I don't know what other abilities you can have this interact with, which I think is pretty cool. Well, Shillelagh can be force damage or bludgeoning damage. Crits would get weaker for more I mean, I don't know. I rolled a lot of 1s and 2s on a d12, so either way. But yeah, I think that's a general improvement in my opinion. I mean, critting for 4d6 is pretty nice. Again, how often are you hitting people with your Shillelagh, though, at level 17? To be completely honest. Also, how many games get to 17, realistically? Not to, not to downplay it, but either way. All right, up to the top, we have Shocking Grasp. As said, is now just basically the target can't make opportunity attacks against you until the start of its next turn, instead of shutting down all reactions in general, so you can still... It was kind of interesting how you could basically shut down Counterspell with Shocking Grasp, and they kind of removed that, which I get. So Sorcerer and Wizards for Shocking Grasp. Spare the Dying, again, now added to the Druid spell list as well. Its range is 15 feet, but it increases as you level up. It goes up to 30 feet at level 5, 60 feet at level 11, and 120 feet at level 17, which is pretty cool. That's a massive increase to Spare the Dying, I think. Still an action to cast it, but the increase in range is pretty nice. I also really like to see that a lot of the spells that didn't have level up mechanics in the cantrips are now getting them. That's pretty cool. 2d8, I mean, obviously, you could definitely increase the overall. You could, maybe make that suggestion that you think Shillelagh should be 2d8 as opposed to 2d6. It is kind of, to your point, Alexander, it is kind of annoying that Produce Flame now needs your bonus action and your action to utilize it in combat. I guess the benefit is that it's 10 minutes, so you could cast it before combat. But I agree, it is kind of annoying that it uses your whole turn to throw Produce Flame as for damage. And then we have True Strike, which is the biggest upgrade here, people are telling me, which is now also on the Bard list. I don't recall if it was before. But Bard, Sorcerer, and Warlock, casting time and action. Guided by a flash of magical insight, you make one attack with the weapon used in the spell's casting, which is very similar to what we saw with things like Green Flame Blade and Booming Blade. The attack uses your spellcasting ability for the attack and damage rolls instead of strength or dexterity. If the attack deals damage, it can be radiant damage or the weapon's normal damage type. Whether you choose to use radiant damage or the weapon's normal damage, the attack deals extra radiant damage when you level up by an extra d6 at level 5, 2d6 at level 11, and 3d6 at level 17. This is fantastic because it almost negates the need for you to focus in, it is still, it will be changed up potentially for if you have multiple attacks from some way. But basically, if you're limited to only one attack as a Bard, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard, you wouldn't need to worry about having, you still have to have proficiency in the weapon to use it, but now you won't have to necessarily focus on strength or dexterity. You could just use this, which is pretty cool to see. Again, it is a cantrip, so you're not going to be able to cast 2 cantrips in a turn, which is kind of a bummer. If you had 2 attacks and things, there's possibly some interesting interactions with things like the new version or the updated version of Blade Singer we saw a while back, as well as possibly the updated version of Eldritch Knight, which allows you to cast a cantrip as part of your attacking. Some interesting interaction there. Also, it just gets boosted damage, which is nice, and it can be radiant damage, which is not very easily resisted. So if you're a Bard that possibly has more of a melee combat orientation, like, I don't know if Swords Bard getting upgraded to, I thought it was getting bumped into the new version. I don't recall, though. No, it wasn't, because I think they were doing Valor and Lore and then the new Dance Bard. But, out of curiosity, let's go look at Swords Bard. I know it doesn't really matter, because we know it's not being one of the ones updated in the 2024 Player's Handbook. But did Swords Bard get multiple attacks? They did. So I was just trying to think if you were like a melee based, or wait a minute. Oh, it's not limited to melee either. That's interesting. So it could be a ranged weapon too. Huh. Well, there's definitely some interaction and play to be had there for sure. Because this could be like a bow that you shoot from range that uses your intelligence or your charisma or what have you. Again, and then obviously a lot of interesting usage when it comes to multi-classing. How could you become a charisma-based character that uses a weapon at range and stuff like that? So, what's somebody saying about this with this thing? Until the spell ends, you can take a magic action to hurl. Oh, okay. So somebody brought this up. Produce Flame. It takes a bonus action to cast it initially. But it looks like you can continue to hurl it as an action on your turn subsequently. So until the spell ends, which is 10 minutes, you can take a magic action to hurl fire at a creature or object within 60 feet of you. Meaning, I think you cast it as a bonus action to throw it, and then you can just keep throwing fire. If I'm understanding that correctly. Let's read the description again. There's now a bonus action, but the attack portion is still in action. The range increase, the range of the light is increased to 20 feet. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious if it's supposed to be like you can cast it once and then continue to just throw it But it says until the spell ends, which again is 10 minutes, you can take a magic action to hurl fire. So you cast it once as a bonus action and then throw it as an action. And then on subsequent turns, you can continue to throw it while still having access to your bonus action, is how I'm reading that. But yeah, True Strike is definitely an interesting increase. There's definitely some playability there that I'm not entirely sure what the best way to go about it is. Again, if you come across a really cool weapon that does cool stuff, as like, or you have access to proficiency in a weapon via like a race, right? So like I think about it. So like let's say you were a sorcerer and you were a Githyanki and it gave you proficiency in great swords, and you came across a cool badass great sword that you probably would never use because you'd probably be using your spells, but maybe it had a cool effect, and then you wanted to swing the great sword, you could swing it with True Strike and then gain, use your charisma modifier instead, and then possibly do some extra damage with this. Or also could be very interesting if you wanted to be a warlock that didn't take Pact of the Blade, but you wanted to still have a cool weapon. You could do stuff like that, and then it would still deal extra damage. There's a lot of variability there, but the only problem is, again, typically when you cast a cantrip, that is your action. You don't have an opportunity to make subsequent attacks if you have those. So it basically would be good if you have like one big single hit thing that you could do. But I still really like the upgrades here. I'm just not entirely sure off the top of my head here what the best way to weave this to make it work the best. Arcane Tricksters and Eldritch Knights seem to benefit from True Strike the most. Yeah, but even still, like an Arcane Trickster or Eldritch Knight would likely still have a good strength or dexterity, as they're primarily a rogue or primarily a fighter. The only benefit of True Strike is the extra damage that it would deal. I don't know. Musket lock, yeah, you're not wrong, right? You could, in theory, use this with a gun, a firearm in the game if you had one, or again, something that, again, somebody using a heavy crossbow, somebody using a gun that doesn't have like ignoring the loading property options, where like you can only fire one shot a turn. Might as well make it a big one shot, Yeah, people are bringing up Whisper's Bard. This would be a good idea, right? Whisper's Bard typically only have the one attack, so this would be an attack boosted by psychic damage from their Whisper's ability. So like things that have good single target one shot deal that don't have multiple attacks. Anyway. Yeah, I mean it is a good benefit. It doesn't cost you um a weapon with which you have proficiency. So, it's a definite a boost overall to True Strike. Although I feel like a lot of the times people were trying to use True Strike to give somebody else the benefit to do more damage, or like you're trying to get yourself a crit. Instead, now it just allows you to do more damage as typically a character that's not great at weapons. It's just limited to the weapons you have access to. It would be nice if it said you can use your spellcasting ability modifier rather than always. I'm confused why it's not on the cleric list. If it was on the cleric list, that would be pretty big, because clerics typically don't have more than one attack. Unless they obviously have something funky going, like a bonus action attack. But yeah, especially clerics that can boost the damage with like Divine Strike. This would be great on the cleric spell list. If you find a way to get it as a cleric, it could be pretty big. And people are also saying they don't get why this is radiant damage and Shillelagh is force damage. They should possibly be switched. Yeah, I also prefer the True Strike is basically a reaction guidance D4 on the attack roll. I thought that was pretty good. This is a whole new spell, True Strike, but all right. That is the entirety of the Unearthed Arcana Playtest 8. A lot of time spent on Bastions, very short amount of time on cantrips, but the cantrips I think are all, for the most part, upgrades. Acid Splash an upgrade. I think Blade Ward an upgrade. Chill Touch I think is a little bit of a nerf because you did make it a touch spell, but now the name actually makes sense. Friends is an upgrade. I think Poison Spray is an upgrade. Produce Flame has a little bit of wonkiness on the first turn because of the action and bonus action requirement. But then good subsequently. Shillelagh, big improvements in my opinion. Shocking Grasp, I think is a little bit of a nerf, but I understand the reasoning why, not being able to shut down all reactions. Spare the Dying, big improvement, and then True Strike is kind of weird because it's a totally different spell. So if you happen to be a cleric, right? Arcana Domain cleric can get wizard spells as wizard cantrips as theirs. You could now, in theory, get True Strike, and then it would use your Wisdom modifier, which would allow you to do a ton of damage that way. So, yeah. Again, to come back to, we're gonna watch the video in just a little bit here. Yeah, this is about bastions. This is all about player housing and cantrips. Nothing to do with the monk. Which is a little unfortunate because a lot of people are like, the monk didn't really hit for us last time. And I stressed it a lot at the beginning, so I won't belabor it too much at this point. This is a Dungeon Master's Guide playtest, which is interesting that even though the cantrips are contained in the player's handbook, they're calling it a Dungeon Master's Guide on Unearthed Arcana. But yeah, I just worry about the timing of being able to get this book out sometime in 2024 when you're not done with Unearthed Arcana yet. And you still haven't done things like get the monk to a place where most people are happy with it. But Magic Initiate does exist. It's a free first level cantrip for any class. Yeah, it does let you pick, I think, the Wisdom. You could make it be Wisdom. So there's a lot of options here. All right, let's go ahead and watch the video. There's a 42-minute video, so I think we're going to do double time. Everybody cool with that? Maybe at least 1.5 times, because it's going to be a lot. They did also finally put, take a look at this. They have finally started putting chapters on their videos, which is nice. So we can finally see what's going on, so we don't have to jump around. But
we've got another Unearthed.
Oh, sorry. My headphones died. Let's turn that back on so we can actually hear what they're talking about. Come on, headphones. There we go.
Arcana, this one is special because we're seeing something completely new. What is that?
We decided to do a bonus Unearthed Arcana. You and I have talked in the past about the fact that we would be launching Dungeon Master's Guide UA once we wrapped up the Player's Handbook Unearthed Arcana. Yeah. We decided to actually do a bonus Dungeon Master's Guide UA sooner, and so that's what we have ahead of us. In this UA, we finally get to visit an exciting subsystem that we've been working on for quite some time, the Bastion system. And we also have included in this UA a number of revised cantrips that we'd love to get people's feedback on.
And what does the Bastion system do?
So the Bastion system is a whole new way for your character to make a home. And this system is going to be in the new Dungeon Master's Guide. It will be one of the many new or reimagined tools for DMs and also, by extension, players who play in their DM's campaigns, a whole host of new tools for people to use in their games. This tool, this toy, is specifically meant to allow a group that decides to use it to really delve into the fantasy of creating a home, creating a headquarters. With a Bastion, you will be able to create a stronghold, a tower, a shrine. You decide the shape that it will take, and you can develop it as either a place that belongs just to your character, or you can develop it in concert with the other characters' bastions to essentially create a mighty fortress that could have different elements in.
This is the lobby of Wizards of the Coast out in Seattle. Like, this is their lobby. Like, they have like a coffee machine over here in the background. This is the front lobby. Usually they film it in like the game room. This is the front lobby.
Decided. One of the wonderful things about the Bastion system is also the high level of customizability. So first, when you get your Bastion, you get to decide, and you'll get your Bastion if you use these rules around 5th level. You'll decide its layout, and we give you guidance on mapping your Bastion. You'll get a certain number of rooms that we think of as just general purpose rooms. They don't cost you any extra, but then you get these special parts of your Bastion. These are called facilities, and each facility not only is a fun aesthetic addition to your Bastion,
I know, I hear the door in the background.
It gives your Bastion special abilities, and by extension, it gives your character special abilities. For example, we have facilities that will allow you to have people play games inside your Bastion, because we're gamers, and we figure many D&D characters probably enjoy playing games. Yeah. But you can, in that part of your Bastion, have essentially a gaming event.
It's a statue of Drizzt and Guinevere. It's right in the front. Like, as soon as you enter the lobby of this Wizards of the Coast office. It's right there.
That generates money. You can have bastions that will allow you to craft certain magic items, others that give you the ability to recruit defenders to your bastion, still others at high level that will allow you to go into a demi-plane that belongs to you. You can have a teleportation circle in your bastion. All of these and many, many
There's somebody in the background right here in the frame going into this door here.
many more choices will be available to you as you reach certain levels and you gain the ability to decide which of these customization options do I want for my bastion. Now, not all options are available to all characters. Many of the facilities have prerequisites that are tailored to work with certain classes, and you'll see that rather than having...
Not double speed, this is 1.5 times. I could go to double, but 1.5 here. Let's see. We could go. This is double speed for people who are curious. We can go to How about 1.75?
specific classes as the prerequisites, we typically have class features. And because class features are shared among multiple classes, that means that multiple classes typically qualify for facilities that have prerequisites. Some concrete examples. We have some facilities that require you to have certain weapon capabilities, and so those facilities are going to appeal to classes like fighters and rangers and paladins and barbarians. We have others that require certain spellcasting capabilities, and you, if you are a member of a class that is a hybrid class, like the ranger and the paladin that have a mix of potent weapon abilities and spellcasting, you'll find that you qualify for a really fun mixture of facility options. The other element of bastions that we look forward to people playing with is the sense of time passing. Bastions have this notion of essentially your bastion getting to take a turn.
Yeah.
And you can take a turn once every 7 days, and every 7 days you can issue a particular order to your bastion. And we give you a set of order options. You can almost think of these as like the action options that characters have. Bastions have a set of order options. Each order does a different thing, and different facilities respond to different orders. So a particular facility might do something special if you issue one of the particular orders in the game. You also have the option of not issuing an order at all. This will particularly happen often when you're not at home, because your bastion will have essentially employees in it, hirelings, to use the more traditional D&D term.
I do want to ask you guys, we did cover this whole Bastion thing like pretty significantly earlier on. Oh, that's okay. You're fine. Thank you, honey. We did cover the Bastions pretty significantly at the start of this. So we can continue to watch the Bastion stuff. Or we could skip ahead to like the cantrips, and I really want to hear the results of playtest 6, but I'll leave it up to you guys. Do we want to continue with the Bastion stuff? You know what? I'll make a poll in the chat. Hang on. We can do this. We're streamers. We do this thing. Start a poll. Continue with Bastion, or skip the cantrips. Let's go stay with Bastion. Skip the cantrips. Alright, there we go. Play while we're doing the poll. Alright, we can play it. We're going to go back down to 1.5 times because I think some people are complaining about it being too fast. So let this run while the poll runs in the background.
You're out adventuring. And if you don't issue an order
mini tacos
that
for people
leads to a magic item being produced that you can have when you come back, or income being generated, or whatever the special order is, there instead occurs the maintenance order. And some things still occur that are beneficial when maintenance occurs, but then you also open your bastion up to a random event happening. And so one of the entertaining parts of bastions is that things can happen within and to the bastion while you're away on your adventures. And so when you come back, you can find out what the heck happened.
Yeah.
What is the product that was produced, or the other benefit that was created. The other thing that happens whenever these bastion turns occur and you issue an order is you generate a new currency called bastion points. Those points you can use when you level up to purchase a magic item, and you can also use those points to extend your influence in the region around your bastion, and you can also spend those points to have your character revived back at home if you die out on an adventure and your group has no way of bringing you back. If you have generated enough sort of bastion power, which is represented by bastion points, you can tap into that if necessary to have essentially your hirelings drag you home and get you patched up and adventure ready again.
Nice.
Now, this system is designed to stand on its own 2 feet, meaning you can drop it into a campaign and it has within itself everything you need to use it. That also means that it is right for you to use it in your games now. One of the reasons we wanted to get this out into people's hands early is, first, we're just really eager to find out what people think.
Yeah.
But second, this is so just ready to use.
Give another
and
2 minutes on the
doesn't
poll.
sort of rely on anything else going on in either the 2014 or the
Feel free to
2024
jump in
rulebooks.
if you have
That
thoughts.
you could take this Bastion system and use it right now in Phandelver and Below, The Shattered Obelisk. You could use it in upcoming Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse.
Especially with how many different shops there are in that setting.
Yes.
It's the city of Sickle. So like,
Yes.
there's just about
Coffee
anything you
machine
possibly
is
want to find. It's the best
wigging
place
out
for
in
a
the
business.
background.
And
Look at
there are certainly a few things here where, you know, a prerequisite might point towards something that's in the 2024 versions of some of the classes, but you will find that this is ready to go with your 2014 rulebooks, which has been our approach internally with how we playtest everything for the rules revision. Because in our internal playtests for next year's new version of the Player's Handbook and the other core books, is we use the 2014 rule books, and we simply
still sticking
pair
with next year.
those rule books with whatever new version of something that we are testing. So the game that we are playing internally on an almost weekly basis
Yeah.
is the 2014 rulebooks mixed with the material that will appear in the revised core rulebooks. And so again, I encourage people, please read this and give us your feedback, but also play with it. And that's my encouragement really
All
with
right,
everything
hang on,
that we
we'll
release
get
in
to
Unearthed Arcana, is try it out in your current games, because this material is designed to work not only with the upcoming core rulebooks, but also the existing ones, revised spells that we provide, new feats,
Yeah.
new versions of subclasses or classes. You can start playing with them now.
Yeah. The idea of bastions is something that comes up a lot. Like whether it's like sometimes you're in a flying castle and this is your home base, but there's home base always seems to happen. Like I love owning property in Ravenloft for some reason because it's just so fundamental to like Gothic horror that something bad happens to your house.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and in some ways, it's sort of a D&D tradition that as soon as you have property, something's going to happen,
Yeah.
which is why we included the random events in the Bastion system.
All right, we're
A
sticking
DM,
with
of course,
Bastion.
can also come up with special events, but we wanted there to be a ready-to-use way to have those unexpected circumstances surrounding this place that you now care about, that also has people in it that you care about. The Bastion system also addresses something in the 2014 downtime system that we've been wanting to address for some time. And that is, our downtime rules in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, as well as in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, do a really good job of providing you some crunchy options for things you can do between adventures. Or on an adventure that maybe where the heat is a little lower, you're not
Yeah.
spending most of your time fighting, you've got time to shop, to research things and whatnot. But one of the issues with those options is they all require your character to be doing something. And the issue is many campaigns don't have time for that. Many campaigns involve stories where the characters are trying to save the world.
Yeah.
There's a ticking clock. If they don't do X, that city's going to fall into Avernus, or whatever the thing is that they're fighting against. And we wanted to provide a way for you to gain access to some of that really fun world texture that exists in the downtime rules, even while you're adventuring. And so the Bastion system provides a way for you to do that, because while you're away, you have people back at home that can be doing these things that will, again, essentially have a gift for you when you come back. It also is a way for players.
We've only got like a
to get
minute or
taste of
two
what it's
left
like to be a dungeon master.
on this. So.
Often when players think
We'll
about
just let it
making
run.
the leap from playing to DMing, sometimes there can be some trepidation because it will feel like, well, what the DM does is so different from what I do as a player. Even though many of us know who have been on either side of the screen know that what the DM does is very similar, but just on a larger scale. Rather than thinking about what are the motivations and decisions of this one character, it's instead what are the motivations and decisions of whole groups of characters or whole kingdoms. But we wanted to make
Yes, Ron. The 100% more use for gold. It's definitely, if you get a chance, take a look at the beginning of the article, or basically the first couple hours, basically the first hour of this video. We go through the Bastion system. It is 100% a means for you to expend your gold. A vast amount of roleplay opportunities for it comes for this player housing side of things. Ways for you to get magic items canonically in the game, and a lot of other cool researchy stuff. I've done player housing in my games. This adds a lot more hard mechanics to it. It also leaves things like the player allowed to come up with the names of the hirelings they have, personalities for them. It's purely up to them whether they want to do it or not. You can combine bastions together with other members of the party. It also is nice because not everybody in the party has to have one if they don't want one. I can have one as a shrine as a cleric. You could have a keep as a fighter. The rogue could have a thieves guild, or whatever you kind of want to do, and then play around and make different options. Combine things together where it makes sense for roleplay opportunities. You can't share resources with the exception of defenders to defend your bastion if something goes wrong. It's pretty cool for what it is. I'm not too familiar with followers and strongholds from MCDM. I see it brought up a lot in the chat. So I don't know if this is a direct ripoff, if it's a good comparison, however it works. But I do think there's something to be said for this. I think it's a good inclusion. And again, it's coming in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So it's also all purely optional. The DMs can choose not to use it, and the players just get it at 5th level if you decide to incorporate it, and then you kind of work things into the background to kind of make it make sense over time, which gives you some good, creative muscle stretching as the DM as well.
A clearer connection between those two experiences, the player experience and the DM experience. We wanted to give players a way to be responsible for a place, for mapping it, and also to be responsible for the NPCs in it. So we often think of the Bastion system as a way for players to be mini DMs, where they have this piece of the world that they're the dungeon master of it. They're deciding what goes on inside the walls of their Bastion.
That's perfect. Yeah. It's also it's a good place for villains to like tick off
Yes,
players.
Yes. Yeah.
That's something that happens to. But yeah, you're right. That's like kind of like that's like the first building blocks of the first seed to get someone interested in dungeon mastering, because now you're managing stuff. You're coming up with story in your head for this location. So it's very sneaky.
Well, it's not sneaky. We're telling you we're doing it.
We're inviting you to be a dungeon master.
Exactly.
Look how fun this is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so the other part of this Unearthed Arcana are some cantrips. We couldn't help ourselves.
Yeah.
we have a set of cantrips
Yeah.
that when we did the Big Players Handbook
All right, we're on
survey
to
in
cantrips,
2021,
folks.
some of those cantrips didn't score particularly well in terms of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
We have already, in this Player's Handbook Unearthed Arcana series that's been going on since last year, we have already brought some of those cantrips into the playtest, but we had more that we wanted to get into the playtest stream, and we didn't want them to wait for our next dedicated Player's Handbook UA. So the Bastions, which are the star of this article, they have in their sort of sidecar this fun selection of cantrips. And cantrips are really important to us because for any character who is either a full spellcaster or dabbling in spellcasting, cantrips are often their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Cantrips also appear in many of our monsters. And so it's important for the game, whether you're a player or a dungeon master, that the cantrip ecosystem be healthy and fun and diverse. And so you'll see here, with these revisions, we are targeting exactly those elements. Fun, diverse, making sure any pain points are sanded.
So based on what we reviewed, I feel like they're more or less hitting the mark on a lot of what they're saying for cantrip. I think fun is subjective, so I can't really argue that these are more fun one way or another. But I do think they did expand the variability and the usefulness of these cantrips. So I'll agree with that.
Away. And so the cantrips that people are going to find here run the gamut from things like Acid Splash to True Strike.
Yes.
Some of these have had just small but important quality of life improvements. So the very first cantrip in the list, Acid Splash, is largely the cantrip that people are familiar with, but it has now been turned from you pick two creatures next to each other and target them to essentially your first area of effect.
Yeah, your first AoE.
Your first AoE, because now it creates this 5-foot radius sphere explosion that can still catch two creatures, but might even catch more.
Right.
If you.
I gotta be honest, this point they're making about Acid Splash, I usually never take Acid Splash, but I probably would with this adjustment, because you could possibly hit up to 4 creatures in a 2x2 square with a 5-foot radius Acid Splash. That's pretty cool to be a low-level character and to have like an AoE that's a cantrip. That's pretty awesome.
If you're playing on the grid and you have it explode at the intersection of the lines, and if there's a bunch of creatures bunched up, you could get up to 4 creatures, or even more if they're tiny and they're crammed in there. Now, so we have on one end,
correct,
that
Platypus.
Meaningful quality of life improvement in Acid Splash, but then on the other end with True Strike, we have a total redesign. True Strike is a cantrip that has always had a cool concept of I'm a spellcaster and using magic, I'm going to direct my strike. The way we implemented it, though, in 2014, because of how the action economy works, it meant that it was rarely optimal for almost anybody to use it. And
nobody
when we
used it.
designed True Strike almost a decade ago, we at the time were still new ourselves as designers to using advantage and disadvantage in the game. And we're actually very cautious in how we used those mechanics in certain places. And you can absolutely see that caution in the 2014 version of True Strike. The new version is a completely different take. It's still all about magic guiding your strike. Your weapon strike is not about how strong you are or how dexterous you are. It is about your magic guiding you to your target. But how that is now represented is with this cantrip. Similar to cantrips like Green Flame Blade, it includes the weapon strike itself in the cantrip.
Right.
And you are making that weapon strike using your spellcasting ability rather than strength or dex. We have a few others that have been completely redesigned. Blade Ward is another.
That's reaction now.
Yes, Blade Ward is now a reaction. And it allows you to impose disadvantage on somebody's attack against you. And it has now an upgrade at higher levels where it's sort of the range at which the attacker can be gets further and further away.
Oh, nice.
Whoa. Hold on. That's a lie. Ah, I bet you that's why they took it down. That's not true in this article. Okay, let's go back and listen to that again. Ready? Listen to what he has to say here.
And it has now an upgrade at higher levels where it's as the sort of protection fighting style, but just for your.
At higher levels, it can protect you from attacks further and further away. It says right here, targeting you with a melee attack with 0 upgrade at higher levels. So the video is in direct contradiction to the actual thing we see here. Now, I wonder if part of the reason why some of you forgot or couldn't find it might be because they took it down with the purposes of upgrading it and adding in that bit. I wonder if we were to go and try to do it again. And like re-download it, will that be in there? I might have to like do this in oh yeah, it's not gonna do it. I might have, if anybody has this, you want to do this in an incognito tab or like do it without being open because there may be like cookies associated with this. I don't know. But that's cool because I was going to say I like to see how they were making it that all cantrips have an upgrade as you level up. This one doesn't have it.
It's for the spellcaster who doesn't have anything else demanding their reaction, and many of our spellcasters rarely, if ever, make opportunity attacks. They don't all have shield at the ready. And so Blade Ward is a great, in this new form, a great fallback
Somebody's
option.
chatting in the background.
I don't have anything else to use with my reaction. And oh no, someone's attacking me. Maybe imposing disadvantage on it will cause them to miss.
Definitely making the Eldritch Knight even juicier now. Yeah.
If the Eldritch Knight is fine, not having the potential to make an opportunity attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blade Ward is meant to be a fallback option. And really, it's important to think of all cantrips as fallback options.
Yeah.
Cantrips are the thing you cast when you either can't or don't want to cast a spell of first level or higher. Friends, completely redesigned. It now just charms the person.
Yeah.
And it's very short. It no longer makes them hostile toward you. And it's important when people look at this, it's important for people to remember what the charmed condition does and what it doesn't do.
Right, yeah.
The charmed condition, contrary to sometimes the perceptions that people have, is not mind control. The charmed condition simply gives you advantage on your charisma checks with the charmed creature.
Yeah.
And the closest it comes to any kind of serious beguilement is while they're charmed by you, they can't attack you. That's it. So we want to see if this new version means that it can now find a place in people's spellcasting cycles, particularly outside combat. And so we'll be eager to get people's playtest feedback on it.
That's awesome. Again, that feedback is critical to all of this. That's why we do these videos.
Yes.
That's why we have you playtest. Give us the feedback. That is like the best way, especially taking the survey. That's the best way to tell us how this is working.
Absolutely. Our team does look online at people's discussions, but where our team spends most of its time when it comes to digging into people's thoughts on different elements of the game, it's through the surveys. We currently have 3 members of our design team who are spending substantial amounts of their time reading.
They're reiterating the fact that they do read the surveys and are involved in it. I know that that's obviously important because of accusations during the OGL timeframe. I still think there might be another way to really drive it home that you're reading these surveys, but I don't really know what that is. We'll talk about it a little bit as we get through this.
What people are writing, and not only that feedback that's coming in, but then our analysis of it is having a powerful impact on where things are headed for the game.
And again, to note, like this is all like these new rules, the cantrips, the bastion system, and all the classes that we've been playtesting. You can use those now for Planescape, for Big Beast, for Fandelver. Like that's the intention. This all works together. That is the point of all of it. So you don't need to wait to play those adventures with the 2014. You can start playtesting in your existing campaigns.
Absolutely.
Because that's how seamlessly everything's working together.
And it will become even more and more seamless as we transition out of public playtesting to nailing things down in the books. And then next year, people will get to start seeing previews of the shape things are actually going to take in the books themselves. Because the other thing that it's important for us to occasionally come back to.
Let's hear that again.
And it will become even more and more seamless as we transition out of public playtesting to nailing things down in the books. And then next year, people will get to start seeing previews of the shape things are actually going to take in the books themselves. Because the other thing that it's important for us to occasionally come back to, you and I have talked about it before, is that UA, while it is a pivotal part of our development process, does not represent necessarily what the final version of anything will be. It's a snapshot of where we are in our development process, and then the feedback we get feeds our dev work in many deep and meaningful ways, but ultimately the final version is what you're going to see in the books, and often there will be changes as we develop things, as we knit everything together to make sure that it works cohesively as a massive game with thousands of moving parts.
So with Unearthed Arcana, we like to look at all the scores from the survey results. You have those scores today. So like, what did we learn?
We have the scores for
here's the scores of
Player's Handbook
Playtest 6.
Right. And as always, not only the scores, but also the written feedback have provided a fascinating sets of insights, perspectives that we're now incorporating into.
So I've said this before, maybe they'll change it and I'll be surprised in this video, that I do feel like calling out specific things, like one piece of written feedback we received in one of those was this, and then they quote and read it, and then say several other people had, whatever, like that might be something to make you feel like they are really, truly reading it. I don't know if that would work, but we'll see what happens.
To our work. One of the main messages we got from UA6 is that most of the classes in it, people are feeling really good about. So the Rogue, the Paladin, the Cleric, the Bard, and even the Druid. The Druid struggled the last time we came up. All of those classes received satisfaction scores in either the 70s or up into the 80s. With the Rogue,
I agree with that.
89%. In that group, the class with the lowest satisfaction score was the Druid, but even the Druid made it into the 70s, and many of the Druid's individual features even made it up into the 80s in terms of satisfaction. Like, people really are enjoying the new Elemental Fury, the Wild Resurgence. So we continue to see a lot of positivity about new features that we've been introducing in the various classes. There were a couple of pain points in this latest version of the Druid, the main ones being Wild Shape and the Circle of the Moon subclass. The other subclasses, Circle of the Land, got 86%. That is a massive satisfaction improvement over the 2014 version. Circle of the Sea, the brand new subclass, got 80%. And Circle of the Moon definitely improved. So we're on the right trajectory with it, but we need at least one more round with it in UA. So our plan is the Druid base class will go back out in our next Player's Handbook dedicated on Unearthed Arcana, mostly to give a revised version of the Circle of the Moon. Because base class
Circle of the Moon was
overall is getting thumbs up, with mostly just Wild Shape and Arch Druid needing a little more love, but we're on a good path with the Druid. We are still seeing with the Druid, and we knew this, essentially two main factions of people who really liked the Wild Shape templates that we provided before.
Okay, I actually thought Druid was perfectly fine in Playtest 6. I really liked it a lot. Two things they didn't mention are Ranger and Monk, which were both in Playtest 6. Were not listed as ones with high approval ratings, so let's see.
But then a larger group happy to be using stat blocks. We are listening to both groups, but charting a course that will be solid for the class and healthy for the game. And so again, people will get to see
I hope
the Druid visit again
sticks closer to this
in our next player-dedicated UA.
Okay.
The one other class in UA 6 that will be returning to the future UA is the Monk. So the Monk is the class that has appeared only once so far in the series. So we already planned on the Monk, whatever its score ended up being, unless it was like 100% satisfaction, we planned on the Monk appearing at least one more time, so that every class got to be in UA
Ranger?
twice. And sure enough, the Monk is going to come back. The Monk has a lot that we're going to be revisiting. There were a number of things in the class that scored really well, and then other things that were some significant pain points. If I were going to boil down where sort of the main pain points are, it's the constraints of discipline points. And so one of the things that we will be addressing in the next version of the Monk is how can we make it so that you do still have this resource you have to manage, but you don't feel like your class fantasy and also your effectiveness are being held back by those resource constraints. So it's, every class has resource constraints of some kind that they have to deal with, but we agree with the feedback that those restraints are a bit too tight right now in the Monk. One thing that will be changing in the next version is we are currently going through the Monk and looking for any place where there is both a usage limit and a discipline point cost on the same feature.
Okay.
That's too much constraint on the feature. Basically, the feature
Agreed.
either needs a usage constraint, like you can use this only X number of times per day, or a discipline point cost.
Okay, that's good.
Not both.
Right.
We're also looking at more places where we can lower discipline point costs, and even places where we can remove those costs.
Interesting.
So we're excited about the version of the Monk we're working on
that's
now,
good.
based on this
That's good
feedback.
benefits all
And
around.
we think we're going to see a lot of excitement about what people see next time. Here's the other thing, though, about the Monk. We're planning right now on just the Warrior of the Hand going back out of the Monk subclasses. That might change between now and
Really?
then, but right now our plan is just that one because the Warrior of Shadow, the Warrior of the Elements, they both scored high enough that they don't need to go back out. I want to pause for a moment and say how remarkable that is.
Yeah.
The last time that we did a satisfaction survey on the Way of the Four Elements, it got 11% satisfaction.
Yeah, that's about
That is
right.
one of the lowest satisfaction scores of anything
in
we have
history.
anything
Yeah.
we have surveyed in this game. The new version, the Warrior of the Elements, made it into the 70s.
Nice.
So
I'm
that
a
is
little surprised,
massive
to be
jump.
honest.
However, I said, Shadow and Elements are not going back out, at least right now. We'll see how our development goes. But for sure,
We'll see how our development goes. How much time do you have left to develop these before you need to close the doors and put this thing to print?
base class and Warrior of the Hand will be going back out for more feedback.
Ranger?
But what this means is that Rogue, Ranger, Paladin,
Damn it!
Cleric, and Bard, they're done in UA for now.
Right.
And they're
Stop
moving
it!
forward into now our development for the book itself. I do want to pause for a moment and talk a little bit about the Ranger here.
Okay.
There were some pain points in the UA6 version of the Ranger where, some concern about favorite enemy, about foe slayer, and deft explorer. Those concerns brought down the satisfaction score of the class overall.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to send this class back out, though, because with the Ranger, we did an A/B test where we tried out different versions of the same features. The previous versions of those features scored so well that for the book, we're going to create a synthesis version where basically we take the best elements that have arisen in the class in the playtest and make sure that those are what get the spotlight in the player's handbook. So essentially, we've gotten all the feedback we need on the Ranger. We see what people really like, we see what people really don't like, and we're going to steer toward the stuff that really excites people.
Awesome.
Also, while we're talking about the Ranger, another subclass that was wildly improved because the other subclass that was often like below 20% in satisfaction down there with Way of the Four Elements was the Beastmaster.
Right.
Beastmaster this time around, 78% satisfaction.
Oh, God damn it.
So again, great improvements, tons of excitement in the Rogue about Cunning Strike. Cunning Strike got 94% satisfaction.
Cunning Strike's fantastic. I
So
love
Cunning
that.
Strike,
Yeah.
that new feature, it is clearly here to stay because Cunning Strike and Improved Cunning Strike were both hovering around 90% satisfaction.
fantastic
It is
ability.
rare
Cunning
for
Strike's
anything
great.
in
Ranger,
our
sorry,
massive
but-
D&D families, given the hundreds of thousands of people who play the game, the thousands of people who take our surveys.
Right.
It is rare for anything with that large of a group with many different tastes to hit 90% or higher. So if something does, when that rare thing happens, it's like, this is clearly here to stay
make it a
because it is so
spider
rare for something
subclass.
to get that high. But even like in the Paladin, we had several things like Lay on Hands creeping up toward 90%, this new
Made
version
it a
of
bonus action. It's
so
huge.
a lot of really excited feedback here, as well as good constructive feedback for how we can improve a number of these things to make sure that in the 2024 versions of the books, they're the best they can be for this version of the game. Now, once we get the survey feedback for Unearthed Arcana 7, we will then see what other classes are moving straight into book development and which others may or may not need to go back out in the next Unearthed Arcana. That Unearthed Arcana will include any of those classes that need another round of public feedback. It will include them all together.
Okay.
So we've been doing this sort of leapfrogging thing
Yeah.
for most of the year. The next Player's Handbook dedicated UA will have all of the remaining classes who need another Unearthed Arcana round.
Nice. I saw a lot of
Okay.
people asking about, but what about the Necromancer? Which is funny because historically Necromancer was never that popular. I thought I like Necromancers as a person, or even like culturally I like it, and it was in the Dungeon Master's Guide in the first place. So it's interesting that so many people brought it up.
So people have asked about the absence of the Necromancer in Unearthed Arcana 7, largely because earlier in the year,
You and I talked.
I mentioned that we were working on a new version of the Necromancer.
Yeah.
So that's on me. I brought it up. And in fact, our plan was for the Necromancer to be there. The Necromancer clearly is not there. And that's because as we have been working on the revised Player's Handbook and digging more into what subclasses do people actually play, which ones really excite people, also which ones fit into a nice spread of both aesthetic and mechanical options, we realized that the Necromancer, just in actual popularity, and here I mean actual play and satisfaction scores, the Necromancer has never scored well. And here again, I'm not talking about just satisfaction, I'm talking about actual play. This is significant for us because there are other things in the game that have not scored well in satisfaction, but still score well in actual play. A great example of this is the Ranger. The Ranger has always struggled, the 2014 Ranger,
Right.
when it comes to satisfaction scores because of some pain points, especially at the early levels of the class's design. Despite that fact, anytime we look at actual play statistics, the Ranger has never even been close to one of the least played classes. Two of the least played classes in the game are the Druid and the Monk, and that's been true for the last decade. However, the Druid is often satisfaction-wise scored high. So we always have to balance what do people say in surveys, but what are people actually playing?
Right.
And the issue with the Necromancer is it's low by both metrics.
Right.
Its satisfaction has traditionally been low, and the number of people playing it has been low. So the subclass that ended up subbing in for the Necromancer is the Abjurer, and that's for a number of reasons. One, the Abjurer is consistently rated very highly anytime we've done satisfaction surveys on wizard subclasses. It, in fact, is one of the highest rated among the subclasses. The Abjurer also has healthy play numbers. And the Abjurer is a nice distinction to the Evoker. And often when we've been deciding what will the quartet of subclasses be for each class, we're looking for subclasses that essentially represent different corners of a class's identity. The different quartets succeed at that at varying degrees, but this is a case where the Abjurer is a fantastic counterpoint to the Evoker, where we have the offensive wizard represented iconically by the Evoker, and the Abjurer being the ultimate defender among our mage-like classes. And then the Illusionist, if people are curious, the Illusionist and the Diviner are also a pair of opposites, because the Illusionist is showing how you can use magic to beguile and deceive and misdirect, while the Diviner is showing you can use magic to illuminate and clarify. At some point in a future video, we should go through and actually talk about all of the quartets, because our subclass decisions have often been chasing this notion. I've seen people wonder, for instance, about the presence of clockwork sorcery in the new Player's Handbook. Clockwork sorcery we chose not only because it was highly rated,
Wild magic.
but because clockwork sorcery is the opposite of wild magic. One is the magic of chaos, and the other is the magic of order. The new Player's Handbook, by the way, is going to be explicit about these quartets. In our character creation guidance in the new book, as we help guide you in subclass selection, we're going to point out this sort of archetypal space that each subclass occupies, because that's not always obvious, especially if you're not familiar with the game. You just see the names. And we wanted to make sure that when we talk about the subclass options in a particular class, that there's sort of a clear set of aesthetic and mechanical hooks. In some classes, the aesthetic hooks are mightier than the mechanical hooks, and then in other classes, the mechanical hooks are bigger than the aesthetic hooks. An example of a class where the hooks tend to be more mechanical than aesthetic is the Fighter, where the quartet in the Fighter is actually about 4 very different ways of play. And again, that can be for a future video where we delve into the subclass quartets of every class in the 2024 Player's Handbook.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for watching. Thanks. Be sure to test out this new UA. Thank you for all the survey results.
I don't know. Ranger didn't hit for me. I don't know about you guys.
And fill out.
Oops, sorry. We know that Blade Ward apparently had some stuff that was missing that might get updated in a future video. I don't know. Monk obviously did need improvements. They are listening to see that they do need improvements. I'm surprised out of all of the things that they were like, we're going to update this, they were like, we really need to work on the Moon Druid. That's what we need to bring back and adjust, not like the entirety of the Ranger. But as was brought up in the chat a few times, it might just be an instance of like, it's better than it was, so it received good feedback. But that's a hard judgment when the feedback originally is so low. Is this just a game of comparisons, right? Like, if it was clearly like an F tier thing, and you did stuff to improve it to become C tier, it's like, hey, look, great improvement. But it's like if everything else is A, B tier, and this just is a C tier bit, and by comparison from going from F to C, you're like, that's great. That's good improvement, but it's not great. It's not on par with everything else. It's just better than it was, so everybody's like, we did good, we made it better. It still doesn't have an identity. I will fight that till the day I die. that the ranger does not have a subclass identity. I mean, I feel like things are even better. Like fighters doing even better. Like it's much more like the master of all weapons, and it's got all this cool stuff now with the weapon mastery property. And like, I didn't even think fighter needed that much of an adjustment, but I feel like fighter is way better than it ever was. I feel like a lot of stuff have really grown and have gotten a lot better. I love the fact I didn't think rogues needed any adjustments, but they gave them cunning strike, and that's fantastic. Using sneak attack dice as a currency for adjustments for attacks and stuff. I think that's great. That's fantastic stuff. Ranger just has like, maybe we give him a hunter's mark, maybe we don't give him hunter's mark. Maybe it costs spell slots, maybe it doesn't need concentration. I don't know. I guess they're good at being outside, maybe. Have him pick terrains, don't have him pick terrains. Have him pick favorite enemies, don't have him pick favorite enemies. I don't know. I don't have a magic bullet answer for you. I've tried a couple of things. I thought that animal companion would be the answer. They get like a little pet. It's basically like a find familiar pet, and then like maybe it gets boosted up to be better if they're a beastmaster. A lot of you said I don't want to have a pet, so get rid of it. So that's my answer. I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry. It's gonna come out. I still feel like we'll see when it comes out in 2024. But can you just be a better ranger by being a rogue or a fighter or a combo of both? Because I had this conversation with people and they're like, yeah, hunter's mark. And I was like, but you wouldn't say that the hex is the warlock's whole identity. And they're basically the same spell in so many words. Again, they do different things slightly, right? One does the disadvantage on the saving throw or the checks. The other one does the tracking capabilities. But fundamentally, hex and hunter's mark are more or less the same spell. And I would still argue that Invocation and Eldritch Blast and the pact things make the Warlock more unique, not its whole based around Hex, you know what I mean? So it's the same thing with like the Ranger. If you're going to say it's Hunter's Mark, it needs another cool thing. Right? And it has a lot of stuff that are similar, right? Like it has fighting styles. Right? Other classes have fighting styles. It has weapon mastery. Other classes have weapon mastery. It has, some expertise. Other classes have expertise. I mean, paladins have smite. Paladins have find steed. Paladins have lay on hands. Paladins has, detect evil and all that stuff. And like, it's the closest correlation as they're both D10 hybrid casting classes. And it's just like, you get lay on hands, you don't have an equivalency to that. You get smites, you don't really have an equivalency to that. And this past time, they're like, what if we give them Conjure Volley or Conjure Barrage as a spell for free? How does that compare to the concept of smiting? Auras are a thing. You don't get, I don't know. I do have to do TOV Ranger stuff. That's on my list. I want to talk about that. So I do have to cover that. So we will do that in the future here. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just checking through your guys' comments here. Problems of pillar and style of play. Yeah, you know what? If exploration was handled better, right? Exploration is obviously one of the pillars of the game, so they say. And if Ranger was like the expert at exploration, that could do a lot. But I don't feel like exploration is really like done well. I don't know. I think the monk is going to end up being largely the same, to be honest with you. But. See, that's what I say, William, right? Even if the Ranger isn't about being a Beastmaster, having a pet falcon or a hunting dog isn't necessarily combat five. But yeah, for scouting, for other stuff like that, I always thought that would be fun. Like, everybody gets animal companion, and it's going to not be as good. It's going to be less of a combat viable option. It's going to be more like a slightly improved find familiar for the base Ranger. And then the Beastmaster, kind of like what we're seeing with what they're doing with the Druid, which is I thought we could see a correlation there, right? Druid, they have the way they adjusted is wild shape does certain things, but now like if you go into the Moon Druid, it does more stuff for your wild shape. It would be the same concept with the base Ranger. Base Ranger has some stuff, and then it has like an animal companion. Like I said, a little bit better than Find Familiar, but not too much. From different options, whether that's a dog or a falcon or what have you. And then the Beastmaster version of it is just it gets boosted hit points, it gets to be a higher challenge rating, it gets to do other cool things. That's kind of how I feel like they did it in Baldur's Gate, right? Like at a point, your animal companion just becomes pretty awesome if you go with the Beastmaster in Baldur's Gate, but let's see. I've said this forever. The way Ranger is now, you only notice what you don't notice. Food during travel, etc., which feels bad. You want to be cool. Yeah, I mean, it's true, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I look back at the 3-5 Ranger, right? And one of their main things was, like, they had weapon. Like, it was a weapon focus. Are you 2-weapon fighting, or are you range fighting, right? Like, that was a thing you had to pick, and, like, you chose your weapon-specific style. Do you want to be a dual wielder or an archer? And you picked different things. I'd say just make Find Familiar and Find Steed into Ranger spells. You could possibly do that. Yeah, I do feel like Baldur's Gate 3 Ranger does a pretty good job. I mean, I think you struggle at early levels compared to some other classes, but I think once you hit like level 5 in Baldur's Gate, you do a lot better. Well, I would love a better idea than a pet mechanic as the core mechanic for the class, because, I mean, you could have subclasses that drop it, or like, I don't know how you would do it, but like you consume your animal companion, as it were, to like give you benefits. I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? Like something like that. Because like if that could be the tricky part with it is like you want the mechanic to be expendable as a currency, as it were. Right, we've seen that adjustment more recently too. So you look at things like the druid, right? You get wild shape, and normally you use wild shape to turn into an animal, and things like the moon druid turn into an animal, and they're better at it. Like that's their use of it. But like other classes can use wild shape, can expend wild shape uses to do other cool things, right? Like you look at the wildfire druid, get some of the spirit and all these other things. They're using wild shape, but not in the traditional sense. It still has its base mechanic, which is to turn into an animal, but you can expend that use, which is a limited use thing that you have, to do other things. So that's a thing that I think the Ranger is lacking. Because like I said, I didn't think that rogues needed it, but they even gave them that kind of concept of taking something that they have, currency being sneak attack dice, sacrificing those sneak attack dice to do other cool battlefield control things. So whatever the ultimate answer is for the Ranger, I think it needs to be a cool, unique mechanic that can be expended in other non-traditional ways for the subclasses to do cool things. So not the best example being the animal companion, but let's use that as the example, right? Animal companion exists. I don't know how you would quantify it. Maybe it's a limited time summon, and then the Beastmaster Ranger gets to make it permanent, right? Or something like that. And then like the Hunter Ranger gets to expend a use of summon animal companion to do something, right? Something like that, I think that's why I said I don't have like the perfect answer for it, but that's where we're kind of at, in my opinion. Somewhere in that area is where we need to be, right? You give them some sort of cool, unique, limited use mechanic, and then the one subclass really dives into that as it's like improves upon it, and other subclasses allow you to expend uses of that in a non-traditional way to do something else that's unique. Let's see what you guys had to say about that. What if Ranger was more like Warlock? I don't disagree. I think that's could be a good idea, potentially, too. What if your combat moves were tied to natural spirits? You channel spirits, right? Maybe the Beastmaster channels the spirit into a physical being, and then that becomes a thing that you could use. That could be something. Um, hmm. What are the Rangers' actual good features? Favorite enemy is a cool feature. It just I don't know how to expand on it. I mean, like you could right now they were big on not giving favorite enemy like mechanical benefits. It was basically just like advantage on checks to track it. If you wanted to give it dice, like damage dice, like that could be a thing you could use possibly. I liked in 3.5 that it upgraded at times so you could basically choose you had multiple favorite enemies and you did additional damage and you could be like, okay, I want to have more damage on this favorite enemy, stuff like that. Ranger could get a mark ability that does more than just damage. Yeah, you could do traps too, right? Create trap thing. I don't know. That could be a thing. Animal communication, tracking, survivalism, spiritualism, nature powers. Yeah, all those sound good. Um, make the future rangers bond. You form a bond with an animal companion. You form a bond with a party member, possibly. Rangers bond. That could be what you want to call it. Could also be interesting to provide ranger with mechanical benefits, methods of exploration. I like the ranger to be fully martial class instead of they're gonna have spells because that's just kind of where they're at. But ranger lore has always been vague. In the first Ranger UA from 2024 was way better than what we're getting now. I don't disagree with you there. Ranger should just be the pet class, make Beastmaster the base. I agree with the pet class, but other people say no. So the thing is, we don't have a pet class in the game really, which is the other thing. Yes, playtest 8 is out. We reviewed it already earlier. More of a favorite enemy or like Quarry, so it's not something you pick at the start of the game, but you choose it in a fight. That's possible. I think Fighter Druid multiclass will always be better than Ranger as it stands right now, yes. Favorite enemy isn't useful in most combats like Smite is. Agreed. Creating traps as a Ranger mechanic. Yeah, we don't really have a Trapper. It feels like that should be a subclass, in my opinion, but either way. And for hunting and eating the heart of a creature, resource could be Spirit of Nature. Similar to Warlock slots or Rogue Sneak Attack, you use that resource to track animals. Yeah, I do think this concept of like spirits of nature potentially that could be something, some sort of Rangers bond in a way. Like those are favorite enemy dice pool potentially. Maybe change Hunter's Mark to be like the Paladin's new Smite. Have a bunch of Ranger specific spells that focuses on targeting a single enemy and applying debuffs. It's not bad. Making like a different kinds of mark. You'd have Hunter's Mark, and then that would be the base one, and then you'd have different kinds of mark of this, mark of that, right? So Hunter's Mark would be the base one, then you could have like Blinding Mark or Searing Mark. That would be a pretty similar direct copy. It's not a bad idea. I don't love it, but it's something. It's on the way. As far as a Ranger being good at exploration. But if their Bastion was just the outdoors, yeah, Ranger like Warlock is the way to go. Level pick Spellless Ranger, blah blah blah. Give them invocations. If it was like the Druid in most subclasses, I think the Animal Companion features too much like Pact of the Chain. Maybe give them more terrain control abilities. Maybe. I mean, Pact of the Chain. Who really uses Pact of the Chain? If I'm being honest, but maybe people are more than I am, and I'm just ignorant to it. I don't know. How can bar not change? Was built around spell lists that didn't exist. That's true. What What if the ranger gets super mad and they get resistance to physical types? It's kind of like rage, isn't it? Yeah, okay, there was a joke. Got it. What if ranger was better at fighting groups while paladin is good at one-on-one? It's not a bad idea. Paladin is very much a single target damage dealer, so potentially ranged, AoE being the bar or the ranger's thing might not be bad, or multiple targets. How about the ranger is the multi-class sampler? Ranger should focus on dealing with hordes. It's not a bad idea, like I said. I think that's too much of micromanagement, like Warlock and Arcane. Yeah. Oh, hey, Jordan. Blade Ward and True Strike help Eldritch Knights or Warlocks. It's a weird thing. We were talking about it. I think Blade Ward is definitely an improvement, although I wish it had what Jeremy Crawford said in the video, where as you level up, it lets you block attacks from further away. He said that in the video. It didn't obviously translate to the document, but making the Ranger's Smite equivalent all different AoE variants could provide good control options. That's true, right? If you made Hunter's Mark do less damage than Smites, but it did like AoE somehow, I'm not really sure how it would work. It's not a bad, like I said, doing that could be the way to go, right? You give them different kinds of marks, and that's like their equivalency to Divine Smite. I mean, it's still not going to be as powerful because you don't have things like auras, you don't have things like lay on hands, but Hunter's Mark multiple people, possibly. Again, a lot of people are saying things like, you have to, the other side of it is like, you can't make it all about shooting arrows, volleys of arrows, because then people say, I don't want to use a bow, I want to be a melee ranger. I want to fight up close, and then you'll have all the people who say, well, that's not what Aragorn would do, and Aragorn was a ranger, and then you'll have other people say, well, Drizzt isn't like that, because Drizzt is a ranger. So you're not going to please everybody. We know that. It's impossible. I've seen it. The amount of times that I've come on here to talk about an Unearthed Arcana and then somehow got stuck talking about the ranger, and then just spinning our wheels on what to do, I don't even know how many times that's happened. So I don't know. Yeah, condition Condi class. We don't really have like a Condi class, as it were. If this was like an MMO where you put a lot of conditions and debuffs, that could be the Rangers thing, right? Maybe they do a lot of, bleeds and poisons and blinds, stuff like that. That could be something that you want to focus the Ranger on. I think the concept of traps is a good one. I still think the pet class is a necessity part of it, whether that's just a subclass or not. It's just like I said, finding a mechanic that gets expended in the subclass, whether that's like a channel divinity kind of a thing, or favorite enemy dice, like people were saying, kind of like what we saw with sneak attack, something like wild shape, conjure nature spirit. I don't know. I think the ranger wheel spinning has happened to every UA. Yeah, you're probably right. We do have Condi classes, all spellcasters, so yeah. I did talk about Bastions. This was like the first hour of this live stream. Yeah, loss, hamstringing, loss of movement, that kind of stuff. Each subclass could offer a subclass specific mark. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to consider any of this. I think we're going to get exactly what we got, just with very small tweaks. All of these things are great for you and I to discuss, but it's never going to end up in print. I don't know. Like I said, I often look at the Guild Wars 2. I know it's not necessarily the best example. I look at the Guild Wars 2 Ranger as an idea, although they don't have a druid. The druid's a subclass, is like a elite specialization for the ranger in that. But like they had traps. They also had a cool thing, like the pet was the base class, but they had options to subsume the pet. They had a lot of spirit stuff too. I don't know. I really don't know. Like I said, ranger. It's hard because like how could you make, if you wanted the pet to be a thing, could you make it optional? Like I said, we need, what it really, I think, comes down to is the mechanic, right? Some sort of cool, unique mechanic that one subclass delves into and then other subclasses use in a non-traditional way. I like this concept of spirits, possibly. I like the concept of a nature's bond, you know, ranger's bond, ranger's mark, something that gets like, again, it turns into a physical aspect with the Beastmaster, where it might turn into like a sharpened senses for the hunter or what have you. I don't know. I know. I try. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Do I think we'll get the actual UA soon? No, I think we're going to get it in November, kind of like their original plan, but who knows? Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, Michael, right? Like you solidify the spirit as a beast that becomes your Beastmaster companion, whereas you like consume or like the spirit you summon it into you, and as a hunter that boosts your like skills at shooting or whatever it might be. That's how your spirit manifests in some way. But then you have to think about cascading that out into other subclasses in the future. So, yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, we're probably going to get exactly what we got in the most recent Unearthed Arcana, with like very few tweaks, and it's still going to make me sad, and that's ultimately where we're going to be, I think. Yeah, the four corners approach, I agree. Beastmaster, Hunter, Trapper, Explorer, Marksman. Yeah, marksmanship, beast mastery, survival. Those are all kind of the general themes we want to hit, but I don't know. All I know is I've been at this for about 3 hours. I was not planning to do this today, but I didn't realize I didn't think an Unearthed Arcana was going to drop today either. So give the ranger something called debilitations. They can draw on a source, pet, trap, spirit. Each one can be divided into subclasses. These are debilitations based on trap spirits, etc. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm going to call it here, though, folks. It's been, like I said, 3 hours. And yeah, I have more videos and stuff to make, so there'll be a lot more content coming out soon. I just have to get around to nailing that all down. Hopefully, we'll see potentially an update to the Bastion and Cantrips UA where they add in that adjustment to Blade Ward, so it actually works out at range. That'd be cool to see. Or it might just be something that was cut entirely. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in one of the many next videos that I'll be making.